So picture this. Our hero, Setsuna, is eating dirt, staring up at a world that's basically on fire. The apocalypse is nigh, humanity is toast, and the big bad, Vidra, is doing his whole villain monologue thing. He's all like, your struggle is meaningless, you know, the usual. But Setsuna? He's not buying it. With his last ounce of juice, he decides to go out with a bang. He throws the most basic haymaker you've ever seen at Vidra, and get this, it actually makes the literal god of death flinch. Just a little, but still. Our boy is shook. A low-level punch, something you learn on day one, actually connected with a deity who couldn't just poof it out of existence. But yeah, way too little, way too late. Setsuna's body is hitting its limit, and he's about to be deleted from the server. Vidra cracks his knuckles, sneering that playtime is officially over. But just as the final blow is about to land, the pendant around Setsuna's neck starts glowing like a rave stick. A flashback hits him. It was a gift from his headmaster, who called it the emblem of resurgence. Apparently, it housed the spirit of some ancient tower and came with a one-time use undo button for a major life regret. And Setsuna, in his infinite protagonist wisdom, was like, regrets? Nah, I don't do those. He was pretty sure this thing was just going to be a fancy necklace forever. His headmaster, probably reading his mind, just smirked and said something like, spoken like my star pupil, but he warned him, a day might come when he'd be desperate for a do-over. And boom, back in the present, Setsuna realizes his one regret was not picking the close combat mage class. He clenches his fist, swearing that next time, Vidra is going down for the count. Suddenly, he's not dying anymore. He's in a classroom, getting smacked awake by his buddy Leo, who's telling him it's his turn. Setsuna is bugging out, seeing Leo as a trip. Last he remembered, Leo went poof way before the death god even showed up. He looks around and it hits him. The classroom, the uniforms. He's back at the Mage Academy. This is some prime times reincarnation Manhwa times material. The universe just hit the rewind button, sending him back a solid 10 years to the exact day his path was set, giving him a second chance to spec his character right and absolutely wreck that death god. Leo shoves him again, like, dude, you're holding up the line. Stop spacing out during the ritual of choice. Setsuna snaps out of it and nods. He walks up to the front where the faculty, including the headmaster, are waiting. He hears some girls whispering about how he's a prodigy with a knack for multiple types of magic. The instructor in front of him cracks open a spellbook that starts humming with a soft, magical light. Setsuna remembers the deal. There are a bunch of different magic paths, kind of like character classes. Once you pick one, you're pretty much locked in. Learning spells from other schools is next to impossible. It's like trying to be a diehard fan of two rival sports teams at once. It just doesn't compute. The instructor looks at him and says, all right, kid, pick your poison. What's your specialty going to be? The guy then shows off some flashy ranged magic, totally confident Setsuna is going to pick his department. I mean, who wouldn't? Setsuna's mind flashes back. In his first life, he went with ranged magic, the meta choice. You know, conjuring elements, shooting fireballs, all that good stuff. It's the safe play. You stay far away from the pointy ends of swords, and you can nuke entire squads of enemies with one big area of effect spell. It's the classic OP build in Anytime's Academy Manhwa asterisk. He became the strongest ranged mage, sure, but it wasn't enough to even scratch the final boss. So this time, as he turns his back on the ranged magic instructor, the whole room just freezes. Leo is gobsmacked, probably thinking, bro, what are you doing? That's the S-tier class, just pick it. Everyone's whispering, wondering why on earth Setsuna would even look at melee magic, the absolute bottom of the barrel, most useless option available. The instructor tries to talk him out of it, explaining it's just about making your body stronger. He calls it outdated, only good if you can get close enough to punch something. He paints a picture. It's like you're being showered with 1,000,000 arrows, and all you've got is a single rock to fight back. He straight up asks Setsuna, do you really want to throw your entire future in the trash? And Setsuna knows, this is career suicide. He's giving up fame, fortune, and being a top-tier mage. But this is the only path that has a sliver of a chance against Vidra. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot he's got. You could hear a pin drop as he walks over and puts his hand on the melee magic artifact. The shock is real, but Setsuna's face is pure determination. With this power, he's hunting a god. The room erupts in chatter. Silas, the big shot head of the ranged magic department, slams his book shut with a dramatic sigh. He mutters about how he had Setsuna's entire career path mapped out, assuming he'd make the smart choice and join the ranged magic crew. By doing this, Setsuna basically just spit on all his plans. So, get this, the headmaster, Silas, is busy planning Setsuna's future as the GOAT mage, basically seeing dollar signs and a legacy with his name on it. But Setsuna? He's tuning out the background noise, completely unfazed. He knows Silas's grand ambitions are about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Why? Because in about 10 years, those plans, along with the rest of the world, are going to be a smoldering crater. Yeah, total apocalypse, coming soon to a reality near you. And the opening act, a literal death god, is set to make his debut in just 5 years. Now, despite having all the cheat codes from his past life, Setsuna's current body has the close combat skills of a potato. This means he's on a 5-year deadline to basically become a martial arts master. So, once the welcome ceremony wraps, all the fresh-faced students are herded off to their new magic departments. Setsuna, however, is just standing there, like a lost tourist, having absolutely no idea where to go. He scans the crowd for his boy Leo, but the guy is nowhere to be found. He tries asking a random kid for directions, but the dude and his girlfriend just blow him off with a quick "we're late" and peace out. Setsuna glances around at the other students, who are all either speed-walking away or huddled in their cliques, whispering and pointing. It dawns on him that this whole hero's journey is going to be an uphill battle, socially speaking. He overhears one guy nearby saying, "Guess the rumors about him being a prodigy were fake news," while another chimes in, "Nah, he's just an attention seeker." That's obviously why he picked melee magic. Setsuna just kind of reflects on how quickly everyone's attitude did a 180, and it was all because he chose the magic equivalent of majoring in interpretive dance. Welp, time to find a map. He remembers there's a big one in the central garden. But as he's walking over, he hears the distinct whoosh of a fireball spell and realizes some classic Academy Manhwa drama is going down. A girl is standing her ground, snuffing out the fireball like it's a pesky fly. She's staring down some punk, demanding he give back the keepsake her mother gave her. It's a classic 3-on-1 bullying scenario, with the biggest goon holding a shiny brooch and smugly declaring it's a high-tier mana artifact. His little sidekick sneers, adding that it's a waste on a commoner like her and that they'll, put it to better use. Setsuna immediately sizes up the situation. One girl from the melee magic department getting cornered by 3 dudes from the range magic department. Figures. The ringleader mockingly holds up the brooch and tells her if she wants it back, she'll have to take it from them with her useless close-quarters magic. Then he just opens fire with another round of fireballs. In response, the girl activates her physical boost, the bread and butter skill for melee mages, supercharging her entire body with mana. Here's the catch. A supercharged body is great for dodging, but it's pretty much useless when your opponents are playing keep away from the other side of the lawn. Not backing down, she taps into the power her mom had been saving in that brooch for years. She glares at them, basically asking if they seriously thought she'd just roll over and hand it to them. A blade made of pure mana forms in her hand, a technique Setsuna recognizes instantly. Still, he can't help but think it's a cool party trick, but probably not enough to take on 3 opponents at once. The ranged magic punk just laughs at her, taunting, "Ooh, look at you, shaking in your boots. You really think you can even reach me with that little glowing butter knife?" Fires another fireball, forcing her to jump back. "See? Just like I said," he sneers, "you can't even touch us." Then, with a smirk that just screams, "Punch me," he lets another one fly, asking, "Isn't that the perfect metaphor for your entire life?" Just as the fireball is about to connect, Setsuna flashes forward, sweeping the girl out of the blast radius. Without even glancing at the bullies, he casually asks her, "Hey, you wouldn't happen to know where the melee magic classroom is, would you? Could you point me in the right direction?" One of the goons finally recognizes him. "Hey, that's Setsuna. I heard he chose melee magic too." The leader's nasty grin returns. "Well, isn't this great news? Now I can crush the school's golden boy whenever I want." Setsuna, completely unbothered, just stands his ground. "Look, I get that everyone thinks melee magic is for losers, but it's the path I chose, and I'm going to find a way to make it work. A battle's outcome isn't just decided by what kind of magic you use, you know." The girl, now worried for her new savior, begs him to stop. "Don't. They're seniors. You're going to get hurt." But the bully is already attacking, launching a whole barrage of fireballs at him. "Too late for second thoughts," he yells. Setsuna just focuses, pouring his physical boost straight into his legs. He shoots forward like a bullet, effortlessly weaving between the explosions with insane speed. He thinks to himself, "Okay, this is almost too easy." Then a little smirk plays on his lips. "But I wonder what happens if I try a little something extra." He's already noticed the guy's a total one-trick pony, spamming nothing but fireballs, which of course led the bully to believe fire was the kid's only trick. Our guy just screams at him to shut up, absolutely fuming, and demanding to know how Setsuna was moving so damn fast. He swears on his life he's not about to get clowned by Setsuna, and in a fit of rage, he cooks up an even bigger fireball with both hands. He's gearing up for his big finisher, but Setsuna just casually summons a sword made of pure mana and slices right through the fireball, leaving the onlookers completely speechless. The girl, with eyes as wide as dinner plates, asks if it's even possible to just cut times a spell. Setsuna, cool as ever, drops some knowledge. A real mage fight boils down to who has better mana control. He has a quick flashback, remembering how, even without a massive mana pool, his god-tier precision made him one of the best to ever do it. He's thinking this new spell has way more applications than he thought, already wondering what happens if he mixes speed with raw power. Meanwhile, the bully is grinding his teeth, vowing to hit him with an even stronger attack. His chubby sidekick warns him to just stop, while the other goon points out that if the boss keeps this up, an instructor is going to show up and bust them all. But the leader ignores them, telling them not to get in his way. He starts his big dramatic chant, and while he's busy with that, Setsuna just blitzes forward, closing the gap in an instant. With one fluid motion, he plants a powerful mana-infused fist right in the guy's chest, knocking him clean off his feet. As the bully stumbles back, Setsuna just clenches his fist, thinking about how insanely useful this is going to be in close-quarters combat. One of the lackeys is having a meltdown, wondering if melee magic isn't actually the weakest, and it's only OP because Setsuna is the one using it. How did he get so strong? Setsuna just asks for the brute back. The chubby kid reluctantly hands it over, clearly deciding he wants no more of this smoke. The two sidekicks then drag their injured leader away. Setsuna returns the brute to the girl, telling her it seems precious to her. She squeezes his hand, totally grateful, and introduces herself as Isla Roselle. She gives him a warm greeting and even offers a handshake. He tells her his name as they shake, and she pumps his arm energetically, saying she knows he's famous for having an affinity for all paths of magic. Then she asks the big question, why on earth did he choose melee magic? Setsuna thinks for a second, knowing she'd never believe the truth if he told her. Instead, he just asks if she knows where their classroom is. Isla suddenly panics, wondering if orientation has already started, and they both just take off running. And Setsuna can't help but feel it's a bit unfair that their class is in the most remote, forgotten part of the entire academy. As they're sprinting, Isla asks if he can teach her that awesome mana blade he used. Setsuna explains that he just applied his crazy control over magic to the technique. He figures it should be possible to create all sorts of new combat styles just by applying his control in different ways. And since the whole magic disintegration debuff doesn't seem to touch this technique, once he really masters melee magic, he should actually be able to go toe-to-toe with the death god. Plus, he has another major goal, prepping for the inevitable invasion of that same death god. His mind drifts back to his first life, to a time he was having tea with the headmaster. The old man had taken off his gloves, revealing symbols for two different advanced schools of magic. Setsuna was totally shocked. He knew the symbol on the headmaster's right hand represented summoning magic, but the one on his left hand was a complete mystery, a symbol Setsuna had never seen before. Just as he was about to ask about it, the headmaster said he'd explain when the time was right, trusting Setsuna with the secret, but that time never came. The headmaster was taken off the board shortly after the death god appeared. The culprit was the death god himself, who was terrified of what the headmaster was capable of. Setsuna is convinced that if he can unlock the secret of that second magic path, it might just give him the power to change the world's fate. Snapping back to reality, Ila points to a building, announcing they've made it. Setsuna is already plotting how he can get this era's headmaster to notice him with his bottom-tier melee magic. Unfortunately, the instructor is already being a massive jerk, even though Setsuna wasn't technically late. Apparently, showing up with a girl just made the situation 10 times worse. As Isla starts to explain, the instructor just cuts her off, declaring that Setsuna's days of coasting on his good grades are over. He steps right up to him, a nasty sneer on his face, reminding Setsuna that he's in the melee magic division now, the official outcast club of this academy, Manhwa. Completely over it, Setsuna just bats the instructor's hand away, telling him that listening to him is getting real irritating. He flat out asks why a melee magic instructor was dissing the very magic he was supposed to be teaching. Totally triggered, the instructor grabs Setsuna by the collar, demanding to know who the hell he thought he was talking to. Setsuna, cool as a cucumber, just said melee magic has massive potential, which is exactly why he picked it. The instructor just scoffed, like, alright, hotshot, let's see how long that attitude lasts. Then, turning his back, he laid down a challenge. If Setsuna was such a believer in melee magic, he had to prove it. Nearby, a bunch of students were trying and failing to break a huge stone with their magic. One kid went stumbling back after a hit, realizing he hadn't even left a scratch. The instructor started yelling at the whole class, asking what they thought they were doing. This was their first pop quiz to gauge their power levels. He explained that inside every rock was a fish-sized crystal, and their job was to get it out before the clock ran out. Anyone who failed was getting punished, and with time almost up, nobody had even chipped a pebble. One student started whining that the rocks were way too hard, while a girl was like, "How are we supposed to do this? We literally just started." Another guy whispered that the instructor was probably just taking his bad day out on them because he got passed over for a promotion. And that's when the instructor locked onto Setsuna. He dragged him over to the biggest, baddest rock of them all and dared him to show everyone what melee magic could really do. The catch? He only had 10 minutes. Ila was floored, yelling that the rock was twice the size of the others and 10 minutes was completely insane. The instructor just smirked and pointed to the timer, pointing out that a whole minute had already ticked away while they were busy arguing. Setsuna just walked up and put a hand on the rock. The instructor sneered, asking if he seriously thought he could pull it off. He even mockingly offered extra time if Setsuna begged, but Setsuna just cut him off and said, "I'll get it done in 10 seconds. The instructor was speechless, and even Layla told him not to be an idiot. The teacher was thinking, this rock isn't just massive, it's dense as hell. Even I would need 30 minutes just to make a dent. But Setsuna wasn't bluffing. He had 10 seconds to pull off this classic reincarnation Manhwa power move. With a look of pure focus, he summoned a melee weapon into his hand. If he wanted to catch the headmaster's eye, he had to be the undisputed king of this class, the top dog of this whole academy Manhwa setup. With zero hesitation, he slashed at the stone, knowing he couldn't afford to waste a single second on this chump's game. After the blade hit, for a split second, nothing. The instructor, Zachary, immediately started shouting that he knew it, that Setsuna was all talk. But just as he was gloating, the entire boulder cracked and fell apart. Setsuna casually handed the purple crystal to the instructor, commenting, "See? I was right about the 10 seconds." The instructor's jaw hit the floor, and Isla couldn't process what she just saw. She was just wondering how in the world Setsuna managed to yoink the crystal out so cleanly. The other students were completely losing their minds, with some whispering that Setsuna might actually be stronger than their teacher. One kid even asked out loud if Setsuna was more powerful than Zachary. But the instructor just blew it off, accusing Setsuna of pulling some cheap trick, screaming that there was no way he did it fair and square. Setsuna, without missing a beat, replied, "Well, if it takes you 10 minutes to do this, maybe you should join the class and take some notes." Zachary, absolutely fuming and red in the face, was about to explode when another teacher, Lionel, showed up and grabbed him by the collar. Lionel asked if he was seriously bullying his students. Letting out a huge yawn, Lionel said Zachary's little tantrum actually woke him up, and then clarified that Setsuna didn't cheat at all. He explained that Setsuna simply sensed the mana flow inside the rock and hit it at its absolute weakest point. Lionel then laid into Zachary, asking how an instructor could be so clueless about the basics. Turning to the class, Lionel announced that Zachary would now be giving them a demonstration of the mana guard. Taking a fighting stance, Lionel smirked and said that since Zachary was so proud of his training, he was sure a little demo probably wouldn't kill him. Zachary, now looking terrified, started to protest, but Lionel just shoved him, sending him flying backward and slamming him into the side of a building a good distance away. Setsuna immediately understood that Lionel had shattered Zachary's mana guard like it was glass. This guy was on a whole other level. Lionel then clapped Setsuna on the back, telling him that was some seriously impressive work. He was like, "Look, for melee magic, that's more than enough. You don't need to go full try hard, Setsuna." But Setsuna shot back, dead serious, that he had zero intention of losing to any other department and was gunning for that #1 spot. Lionel just let out a little chuckle at the kid's sheer audacity. "Now that's the spirit," he said, asking if there was a specific spell Setsuna was itching to learn. If so, he'd be more than happy to teach him personally. Lionel then had a little flashback to another student with that same fire. He mused that while Setsuna could probably be the face of the department one day, for now, he was a rival that you absolutely could not underestimate. Getting down to business, Lionel officially introduced himself as the head instructor of the melee magic department and gave a big welcome to all the new faces. And, surprise, they were picking their champion for the big intramural contest today, even though it was super early in the semester. The intramural contest was basically a massive brawl for all between the 8 magic departments, all fighting for glory and bragging rights. Each department would pick their best fighter, and they'd all face off in a classic tournament bracket. Setsuna remembered this well. Before he hit the reset button on his life, he'd actually won the whole shebang for the ranged magic department, which totally put him on the headmaster's good side. And that was exactly why he was so determined to be the representative again. But his train of thought was cut short when he spotted a seriously fortified rock just sitting there. Lionel told him that not only had he shown them the crystal, but there was another student who managed to pull out a similar one using nothing but his bare fist. Setsuna put 2 and 2 together and realized both chunks of rock were the handiwork of this dude, Drago. Drago then stomped over to Setsuna, calling him out and wondering why a supposed prodigy would slum it in the melee magic department. Setsuna just coolly replied that he had his reasons for needing to learn it. Drago just blew up, scoffing at the whole idea. He basically yelled, "What are you going to accomplish with that scrawny body of yours?" Drago then went on a whole villain monologue, revealing his family had been melee magic specialists for generations and that he'd been in intense physical training for 17 straight years. Then, he decided to flex. The ground literally trembled as he threw a punch into thin air, the force so intense everyone could feel the pressure wave. With a super smug look on his face, he got right up in Setsuna's grill. He challenged him to a duel on the spot, declaring that if Setsuna seriously wanted to be the representative, he'd have to prove he had the guts and the power. Setsuna calmly reminded Drago that the contest was a test of skill, and as the only well-known student in their department, he was already a prime candidate. But fine, Setsuna agreed to the duel. Before they could throw down right then and there, Lionel stepped in, announcing the official duel would be scheduled 1 week from today. Drago, clearly pissed about the delay, warned Setsuna not to back out, telling him to fight with honor if you call yourself a melee mage. As he stormed off, one of the other guys wondered aloud who would win. While a girl was totally Team Drago, Ila turned to Setsuna and asked if he was actually sure he could take the guy. Setsuna just shook his head, thinking to himself that Drago's ridiculously powerful body, honed by years of non-stop training, was way too much for his current self to handle. Still, he walked off with a look that said he had a plan. Ila, totally confused, asked where he was going. Her curiosity got the best of her, and she decided to follow. Their little trip took them deep into the forest. They stopped in front of a ridiculously giant tree. Ila still had no clue what was happening. Then Setsuna touched the tree, revealing that this was his secret training spot. He claimed that whenever he trained here, his strength literally increased 3-fold. She could only stammer that it was an incredible tree. Setsuna explained it was the world tree, which had been rooted on this spot for millennia. A green light poured out of the tree and wrapped around Setsuna, accepting him, and he was bathed in its glow. Ila was mesmerized by the light, and Setsuna explained it was the blessing of the world tree, which granted accelerated recovery to anyone it accepted. He let it slip that he'd found this place before his whole time travel adventure. With the world tree's blessing, he never had to worry about running out of mana again. He could jump into different worlds and push his body to its absolute breaking point for training. Ila's mind was completely blown. But she also knew Drago was a born and bred melee mage. Wanting to pay Setsuna back for returning her brooch, she decided to help him out by doing a little recon on Drago. The scene cuts to the melee magic training room, where a few students, including Drago, are getting their sweat on. And who walks in, just observing? None other than Isla, ready to play spy. So, on one side of the training ground, you've got Drago busting out reps with a frankly ridiculous amount of weight. After his set, he casually asks Lionel if there are any more fortified rocks lying around. Lionel, probably questioning his life choices, just asks, "Dude, are you planning on turning every single one of these into dust?" To which Drago coolly replies, "Smashing? Nah, just borrowing them." He then proceeds to stack a literal mountain of said rocks on his back and starts cranking out push-ups like it's a light warm-up, leaving Hila staring, jaw on the floor, wondering if this guy is even human. She's completely shook, trying to calculate how Setsuna is supposed to survive even a single punch from this monster, probably already Googling survival odds against a walking tank. And where's our boy Setsuna during all this? Oh, just chilling under a tree, nose deep in a martial arts manual, before Illa runs up to him like, "This is Esso, not the time for a book club meeting." She tells him Drago's over there doing push-ups, with 5 giant rocks on his back, and Setsuna just shrugs. Yeah, he's a beast. But that's a pretty appropriate level for some serious physical training. He tells her not to sweat it, claiming it's all part of his own training. This gets Ila's attention. Her eyes go wide like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" So Setsuna drops some major knowledge. It's a spell called Physical Bodybuilder, which basically juices up your body and lets you channel mana directly through your nerves and into your fists. He explains that if you concentrate that mana into your legs, you get superpowered kicks, giving you way more devastating power in your strikes. And if you focus it on your brain, boom, instant photographic memory. He then casually tosses the book aside, saying he's already downloaded the whole thing and is itching to test it out. He spots a single falling leaf, and with a kick so fast you barely see it, unleashes a blade of pure energy that slices it clean in two, then goes full-on fruit ninja on the rest of the leaves. Hila's mind is just blown by this incredible display, and honestly, so is ours. If you want to keep seeing these god-tier moves, make sure you're subscribed, because this is just the warm-up. But Setsuna just mutters that it's not nearly enough, and right on cue, a sharp pain hits him so hard he drops to his knees as a nasty gash just appears on his hand. Isla is totally lost, like, where did that even come from? Setsuna just brushes it off. I'm good, as this green light from the world tree envelops him, and he starts explaining his absolutely insane training method. With the physical boost spell, he's intentionally shredding his muscles to their absolute limit, which forces his body into a hyper-recovery mode to grow back way stronger and heal faster. The wound on his hand literally vanishes right before their eyes, and Isla's just like, "Dude, do you really have to go that hard?" Setsuna lays it out plain and simple. He can't catch up to Drago with normal training, not when Drago has years on him. With only 1 week left, he's planning on running this self-destruct and rebuild cycle 1,000 times. Isla is completely floored, asking how he can even think about doing something that brutal once, let alone 1,000 freaking times. Setsuna gets real for a second, explaining that it's not about being perfect. This whole grind reminds him of the days when he was totally powerless, unable to use even a spark of magic. Back then, he just dedicated himself to training every single day, failing over and over, but he never gave up, just kept pushing and improving little by little. He says he can endure anything as long as he knows he's getting stronger. After that, they dive into training together, pushing each other to their limits. And during a break, Ila has this realization. People always say he's a natural talent, a classic trope in any good academy manhwa. But the reality is, this guy works harder than anyone she's ever met. And now, he's the one doing push-ups with an insane amount of weight. Finally, the day of the duel arrives. Setsuna and Drago face off on the battleground, with a massive crowd hyped to see the showdown. Drago opens with a smirk. "Glad to see you didn't chicken out and hide." Setsuna fires right back. "Wouldn't dream of it. I'm taking that representative spot." Ila, playing referee, asks if they're ready. They just lock eyes, staring daggers at each other, and with her signal, the fight is on. Setsuna explodes off the line, instantly closing the distance and throwing a massive left hook. Drago just barely gets his arms up, forming a barrier to block the hit. But even with the block, the raw power of the punch sends Drago skidding backward. Setsuna immediately recognizes the defense. Drago used the Malagard technique. Drago retaliates instantly with a punch so fast and powerful the shockwave hits the audience before they even see it coming, and Ila's heart just sinks. But as the dust settles, there's Setsuna, completely unharmed, having dodged the whole attack like it was moving in slow motion. The students in the crowd are absolutely losing their minds, wondering if these two really just went through the selection ritual only 1 week ago. Setsuna just gives Drago a nod. Gotta admit, if that had landed clean, I definitely would have been sore. Drago, getting seriously ticked off, just starts throwing hands, but Setsuna's not having it. Just bobbing and weaving, which only makes Drago rage harder, screaming about whether defense is all Setsuna's got, and trashing his weak body. Ila's on the sidelines thinking, yeah, a week of training was definitely not enough for this. Even Leonel's watching like, yeeks, looks like Setsuna's been losing this since the bell rang. Drago unleashes another massive kick, aiming to send him flying. but Setsuna just blocks it. Again. Lionel figures he's using some slick mana control to parry every single hit. Drago, now beyond irritated, finally snaps. He's screaming about how snooty elites like Setsuna always look down on melee magic, ranting that his entire family was shamed and humiliated just because they specialized in throwing down up close. In a massive surge of anger, Drago materializes a sword, swearing he's going to end this right now. Not to be outdone, Setsuna summons his own blade in response, and they charge, their swords clashing with a deafening crack. Drago immediately follows up with a lightning-fast series of slashes, but Setsuna, channeling his inner acrobat, just leaps and dodges every single strike. He finally lands a cut of his own, but Drago is right back on him in an instant. Setsuna ducks another blow, and the ground beneath them shatters from the sheer force of their battle. As Drago charges again, Setsuna has a flashback to a couple of nobodies, dissing him for picking this fight and choosing melee magic. Snapping back to reality, Setsuna tells Drago, "Dude, I get where you're coming from, but I'm aiming for something way bigger." Drago is just standing there, completely lost. Like, what is this guy even talking about? In that moment of confusion, Setsuna shatters his mana sword with a single, perfect strike, leaving Drago absolutely stunned, but only for a split second. Drago retaliates, landing another hit on Setsuna, who then activates his physical boost, cranks his speed to ludicrous, and unleashes a counterattack. From the sidelines, Ila realizes Setsuna's attacks are finally starting to leave a mark on Drago. Lionel's thinking Drago is putting up a hell of a fight, for sure. But Setsuna's insane mana manipulation and speed hacks are just on another level. Lionel is practically eating popcorn, dying to see who's going to take home the W. Setsuna knows he needs to create an opening to break through Drago's rock-solid defense. As he rushes in, Drago conjures a second sword, because why not? He starts slashing like a maniac. Sensing he's in deep trouble, Setsuna dodges just in the nick of time as Drago's attack obliterates the ground where he just stood. Seeing the crater he just made, Drago smirks, boasting that Setsuna's quick feet won't save him. Fueled by pure fury, he clenches his fist tight. Ila's watching, thinking, oh no, what's his big move? Drago charges and throws a punch, but it phases right through an afterimage of Setsuna. The real Setsuna is already airborne. From above, he casually explains that by concentrating mana on one spot, you can basically create a decoy. It's the perfect trick to fake out your opponent. Without wasting another second, Setsuna dives down at an incredible speed as Drago prepares for another assault. Setsuna drops the classic line, "Let's finish this," and unleashes a devastating slash. The crowd is in shock, and Lionel is wondering if he just weaponized his own momentum. Both of them were absolute monsters out there. Lionel steps forward, calls the match, and declares Setsuna the winner. This is some top-tier Academy Manhwa drama right here. As Drago lies flat on the ground from that final blow, Ila is absolutely overjoyed. But then, to everyone's utter shock, Drago slowly starts to get back on his feet. The entire audience gasps, amazed that he can even stand after a hit like that. It's a testament to how much of a tank Drago really is. But man, is he furious. He's convinced Setsuna held back on the final attack to avoid a fatal wound, and his pride is completely shattered. Setsuna offers a hand to help him up, but Drago is still seething. He demands to know what Setsuna is even fighting for. After a dramatic pause, Setsuna answers that he fights so he will never lose to anyone or anything ever again, and that he's just going to keep getting stronger infinitely. Drago, finally understanding, mutters, so that's why. He was so strong and accepts his defeat. Setsuna says Drago was a truly worthy opponent and that his strength will be a huge asset in the coming war against the Death God. Lionel strolls over, telling Setsuna he's got some serious guts for taking on Drago at point-blank range. He then raises Setsuna's hand in victory. He announces that based on the outcome of the duel, Setsuna will officially represent the melee magic department. A few days later, Lionel leads our hero to a private room, telling him he was about to walk into a room with all the other department reps. Lionel basically said, "Look, I'm the last person who should be giving you advice, but for the love of all that is holy, just don't start anything." Setsuna, with a totally straight face, promised to be on his best behavior before striding into a room where 7 other representatives were sizing each other up. Some kid with glasses immediately locks onto Setsuna and asks out loud if the melee magic department is times seriously, times participating again this year, even muttering about how shameless they are. Setsuna instantly recognizes the punk as Noel from the enhancement magic department. Noel gets all up in his personal space, plants his leg over Setsuna's, and tries to press him down. He starts running his mouth, gloating that they're rivals in the first match, and dropping the fun fact that in the last 100 years, no melee magic scrub has ever won this contest. His brilliant suggestion, Setsuna should go find a corner and pump some iron. But Setsuna, completely unbothered, just mirrors the move, pressing his own leg right back against Noel's. He deadpans, "Huh, so this is how the enhancement magic department says hello, a little unique, don't you think?" Which of course makes Noel's face turn beet red. Setsuna just calmly shuts him down. "I don't give a damn about the last 100 years. I'm taking the championship this year." Noel, totally triggered, just scoffs and tells him to keep dreaming. And right on cue, the headmaster waltzes in with a big smile, commenting how great it is to see them so fired up, but to save that energy for the actual match. As all the reps snap to attention to show respect, Setsuna has a flash of deja vu. The headmaster showing up at this exact moment is exactly what happened in his past life. As the headmaster addresses them, a pink-haired girl practically beams at him, promising to make him proud in the intramural contest. Setsuna clocks her immediately. That's Carol from the summoning magic department. She's all sunshine and cheer, but he remembers from his first run-through that she was a monster in the ring. He might have been holding back then, but underestimating her now would be a rookie mistake. The headmaster kicks things off, congratulating them all for being chosen to represent their respective magic departments. He goes on about how wonderful it is to see 8 such talented students all gathered in one room. Then he drops the details. The matchups for the contest were picked at random, and it's a one-on-one tournament. And the first match? You guessed it, melee magic versus enhancement magic. The second match is set to feature the healing magic and raising magic reps. The third battle will pit the formation and summoning magic departments against each other. And finally, the last match of the first round will be between the reps from irregular magic and alchemical magic. The headmaster frames the whole thing as a chance for them to experience different magical styles firsthand. The showdowns are set to happen in 10 days. That gives them just enough time to train their butts off and rest up. He says he's looking forward to their battles, and all the students bow in response. As they do, Setsuna realizes this is his chance to talk to the big man. Just as the headmaster starts to leave, Setsuna calls out to him. The headmaster turns, recognizing him as the kid from the melee magic department. Setsuna introduces himself properly and then shoots his shot, asking if he can make a request on the condition that he wins the whole contest. His ask? He wants to learn the headmaster's magic. The headmaster looks surprised, pointing out that since Setsuna is a melee magic student and he's a summoner, he really doesn't think his magic would be much help. But Setsuna clarifies he's not interested in the summoning. He wants to learn about the headmaster's second time specialization. The headmaster's friendly demeanor evaporates. He gets real serious, real fast, and growls. Where did you hear about that? Clearly, Setsuna's sudden spike in power is starting to look suspicious. But Setsuna can't afford to back down now. Not if he's ever going to figure out how to defeat the death god. He explains that if the melee magic department, the laughingstock of this whole academy Manhwa, actually wins for the first time in a century, it would change public perception entirely. He argues that what he's asking for in return isn't that big a deal. The headmaster studies him for a moment, decides he doesn't have any ulterior motives, and agrees to let him test his skills if he wins. Setsuna bows to thank him, but the headmaster adds a warning. It's not going to be a walk in the park. Setsuna just meets his gaze with pure determination, declaring his intention to win the contest and earn the headmaster's teachings. And with that, the headmaster walks away, giving a silent nod to Setsuna's grit. Later that night, Setsuna is posted up outside, scarfing down some top-tier grub and thinking about his 10-year stint at this so-called academy. It dawns on him that for the past decade, his social calendar has been, let's say, a bit empty. He makes a mental note to thank Isla for the 5-star food recommendation. With only 10 days until the big showdown, he's in full-on training montage mode, getting his head in the game. Then, out of nowhere, a voice tells him not to bother prepping. Right before a fist the size of a boulder comes screaming at his face, he parries the attack like a boss and instantly creates some space, only to see his attacker is a freaking golem. And who's the puppet master? None other than Noel, lurking in the shadows like a B-list villain. He's thinking, not bad, but let's be real. He totally sucker-punched Setsuna from a blind spot. Setsuna immediately puts 2 and 2 together. This rock monster is Noel's handiwork, using that creepy power of his to turn life into stone. He just coolly asks what Noel's brilliant plan is. Noel, full of swagger, says they should just skip the formalities and finish what they started, because who has time to wait for an official match against a melee mage? He then summons a whole squad of rock bros for a sneak attack from behind, yelling that Setsuna has to pay for embarrassing him. Setsuna, completely unfazed, is basically like, dude, you played yourself. Just then, a bell rings, and Noel calls it quits, spinning some lame excuse about how it would look bad if people saw him cornering a weak, defenseless opponent. He poofs his golems away and bounces, spitting threats about how he's going to absolutely demolish Setsuna in the real match. Setsuna can't help but admit, the dude's got talent, juggling that many golems at once, but his main focus, the delicious bread that took a dive during the scuffle. The real tragedy is that it's now one with the dirt. Anyway, the next day, over in the melee magic department, Professor Lionel is holding a film session for the class, breaking down the tape of the Drago versus Setsuna fight before the intramural contest. He puts them both on the spot, asking if they've figured out where they messed up. They both give a solemn nod. Drago, Lionel says, you're up first. Drago fesses up that his mana control and his temper were all over the map. When Lionel turns to Setsuna, our guy just says his raw physical power is lacking. In short, Drago basically ran him over like a freight train. Lionel loves the honesty, dropping some classic teacher wisdom about how you can't level up without facing your flaws. He tells them to grind on those weaknesses for the upcoming match. Ela shoots her hand up, asking if this next sparring session is basically a training arc for the tournament. Lionel just cracks a smile and says, that's a sharp question. He lays it out. Setsuna's first fight is against the enhancement magic department. In Setsuna's mind, Noel's whole deal is just spamming a bunch of golems, and since those things are solid, fighting them is pretty much the same as brawling with any other melee mage. Lionel then gives the boys their assignments. Drago's mission: focus on speed. He's got to swarm Setsuna from every angle, basically simulating a whole mob of angry golems. As for Setsuna's job, he just has to block Drago's blitz and practice his counter punches. Drago gets pumped, boasting, "It won't be like last time." To which Setsuna replies, "I'm hoping for the same thing." Drago zips in to land a punch, but Setsuna dodges. Drago's thinking, he read my right, but before he can even blink, wham, he gets clocked. It was Drago's other hand. Setsuna realizes he was just a fraction too slow. Lionel, watching from the side, is impressed, shouting that Drago's found the sweet spot between speed and power. He also gives Drago props for his defense and tells him to use his footwork to shut Setsuna down. Setsuna just nods, takes a step back, and gets ready to throw down again. Flash forward, and they're both completely wiped, laid out on the gym floor. Drago, ever the good sport, thanks Setsuna for the intense session. Lionel walks up, telling them their moves were solid. He's confident that after a few more days, Noel's rock collection won't stand a chance. He hands them some water, and Setsuna, grabbing one, mutters that he's not letting his guard down. Lionel makes a mental note. Drago has a rock-solid foundation. Setsuna, on the other hand, has insane instincts, and they're both improving at lightning speed. And just like that, it's game day. The crowd is electric as the announcer booms, "Welcome to the 781st Intramural Contest. Out of the 8 students repping their departments, who will reign supreme?" In the arena, Setsuna and Noel face off, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. They're ready for war. The announcer tells the cheering crowd to get their bets in. A quick look at the odds shows nearly everyone is putting their money on Noel, and the crowd was basically like, who in their right mind would ever bet on the melee mage? Some kid who'd already gotten his butt handed to him by Setsuna runs up, basically telling him to go out there and show him who's boss. Meanwhile, all eyes turn as Octor from the ranged magic department strolls in with his posse, looking completely unbothered, like he's already won. And yeah, everyone knows the winner of this little skirmish gets to be Octor's next punching bag. The announcer throws a curveball. The stage is randomized for every fight, and for this one, a freaking desert. Noel, of course, can't resist a jab at Setsuna, saying, "Looks like Lady Luck ain't smiling on him today." A couple of Noel's fanboys in the stands start hooting and hollering, totally convinced this melee magic scrub is going to be an easy takedown. Another dude chimes in about how awesome it is to finally face the Academy's laughingstock department. Ela, hearing all this trash talk, absolutely loses it and screams at them to shut their traps. She's all like, "You'll be eating those words when this is over," and starts storming towards them, ready to throw down, before Lionel jumps in to play peacemaker. Finally, the announcer gives the signal, and the match is on. Noel casually picks up a rock and asks Setsuna, "You know what this is?" Satsuna's like, "Is that a piece of fortified rock?" Noel smirks and confirms bingo, and when you mix it with a little sand, and right on cue, a massive golem erupts from the ground, totally immune to blades. Then Noel pulls out a whole pouch of these things and just chucks them all over the arena. As a whole squad of rock monsters pops up, Noel taunts Setsuna, "Let's see how long you can last." Up in the stands, Isla is watching in pure horror, unable to believe the army Noel just summoned. Noel's just gloating now, explaining that on this sandy turf, he's basically a golem-making god, and there's no way Satsuna's close combat B.S. can even touch him. Some guy in the crowd yells out that the match is already over, while his buddy starts making fun of Setsuna. Noel turns back to our boy and says, "Any last words?" And Setsuna, cool as a cucumber, just hits him with, "Honestly, I'm disappointed. I really thought you'd be more of a challenge." Noel is just completely floored by the sheer audacity. He's stunned for a hot second before snapping out of it and screaming for his rock buddies to attack. The golems charge, kicking up a massive cloud of dust, and Noel smirks, muttering about the price of disrespect. The crowd can't see a thing through the dust storm and is totally clueless about what's going down. It's a total brownout down there with all the swirling sand. But inside the storm, Setsuna is in the zone, focusing his mana and just methodically slicing these golems down, one by one. "Yeah, I figured out how to wreck these things ages ago," he mutters to himself. The crowd is shook, and even Noel's jaw is on the floor. In a panic, he spams more golems and sends them charging, but Setsuna is completely unfazed, just calmly walking straight for Noel. He drops a classic line, "When it comes to close quarters combat, no other school of magic even comes close to melee." In other words, he thinks, "Your slow, predictable rock puppets are no match for me." He carves through another wave of them, and you can see the pure panic on Noel's face. Noel desperately yells that he can just make more, and for Setsuna to stop being so extra. But our boy just keeps walking, closing the distance until he's right in Noel's grill. "Looks like luck wasn't on your time's side," he says, throwing Noel's own words back at him before landing a punch that sends him flying. In the stands, some guy is like, "Wait, what just happened?" While the girl next to him is still complaining she can't see anything. The entire stadium is just dead silent, staring at the arena, trying to process what the heck they just witnessed and figure out who won. And as the dust finally settles, the winner is Setsuna. He's breathing a little heavy, but thinks to himself, well, that first match was a cakewalk. Meanwhile, Ela is absolutely losing her mind with joy, screaming her head off for him. Some dude turns to his friends, completely baffled. Did I hear that right? The melee mage actually won? For the first time in, like, forever? One of his buddies theorizes, maybe Noel just ran out of mana spamming all those golems. The students are all buzzing, trying to cook up some explanation for how Setsuna pulled off this impossible win. But Silas, looking completely unimpressed, just shuts them down. Noel didn't lose because he messed up, he says. He lost because Setsuna was just flat out better than him. The student next to him admits, okay, I guess a fight with a melee magic rep was way more hype than I expected. Still, he adds, they should probably put some safety measures in place for this stuff. The second battle kicks off, and it's a total slugfest. After it's over, Setsuna finds Ila and she's showering him with praise, asking if he's sticking around for the next fight. He says yeah, explaining that it's basically homework, gotta scout the competition for the battles ahead. So, Setsuna's scoping out the next fight, Summon Magic versus Formation Magic. The announcer's hyping up Carol, the summoner, who's absolutely owning the ring, while the formation guy scrambles to close the distance. As he's watching this one-sided beatdown, you can see the gears turning in Setsuna's head. He's thinking that even though the formation dude is getting clobbered, his footwork is slick, definitely something to steal for a future throwdown with a melee magic user. Ila, on the other hand, is not impressed. She's like, yeah, the light show is cool and all, but I'll stick to punching things with magic. Thanks. This gets Setsuna curious, so he asks why she's so hardcore about melee when she's clearly got other talents. And cue the dramatic backstory music, because Ila's about to drop some childhood lore. Turns out, when she was a kid, she and her little bro got jumped by a freaking bear. Just when she thought they were about to be a furry's lunch, a badass melee mage swooped in for the save. Seeing that hero in action, all cool and powerful, flipped a switch in her head. She decided right then she was going to be just like him, strong enough to protect people. Then she gets all shy, admitting it sounds kind of childish. She's actually a little embarrassed. But Setsuna, ever the smooth operator, shuts that down fast, telling her it's not childish at all. He lays down some wisdom, saying a real purpose is what makes you infinitely stronger. She's like, you really think so? And he just nods. Perfect timing for a third wheel, because Leo rocks up to find Setsuna. Now, in Setsuna's head, Leo is the number 2 guy in the entire ranged magic department, right behind himself, obviously. Leo strolls over and gives Setsuna props for his match. He's all dude for a melee guy, you've got some serious firepower. Then in a classic move, he immediately pivots to, so, who's this? Gesturing to Ila. Leo gets all weird and stammers, asking if they, get each other. Setsuna's just blinking, completely lost, but Ila jumps in before he can make it awkward. She's like, nope, not what you think, and makes a run for it. On her way out, she tells Setsuna to hang with his friend and enjoy the fights, a masterclass in graceful exits. Setsuna is left completely clueless about what just happened. Leo plops down, and Setsuna, desperate to change the subject, asks why the heck Actor is repping the range department instead of him. He's genuinely confused, since everyone knows Leo's the real deal. You can just see the mood drop as Leo gets all bummed out. He explains it's not just sour grapes, Actor is a straight-up snake. Leo spills the tea that Actor totally played him, tricking him into giving up the representative spot. It's some real villain behavior you'd see in an academy manhwa. Leo gives him a serious warning. Watch your back with that guy. Seriously, don't let your guard down for a second. Setsuna immediately gets it. Actor is one of those win-at-all-costs psychos. He'll have to be extra careful. And speak of the devil, the scene cuts right over to Actor. And what's our boy doing? Just staring at a box of flowers with this incredibly creepy smile on his face. Anyway, back at the tournament. The announcer is losing his mind, hyping up the first match of the second round. The stakes are sky high on this new stage. If you fall, you don't just lose. You also get slammed with a punishing scoring penalty. Over in the stands, Drago tells Lionel that Setsuna is going to have a hell of a time even getting close to Actor. Lionel just snarks back that Drago would be in the exact same crappy situation. Meanwhile, Actor's chilling with Silas, admiring the custom-built stage like he owns the place. Silas is just gassing him up, saying, as expected from the head of the range department, and vowing to make Setsuna bitterly regret ever choosing melee magic. But Actor just smirks and drops this ice-cold line. He can't regret anything if he doesn't even make it to the match. The announcer screams that it's almost time to begin. And bam, we flash back 10 minutes earlier to the contestant waiting room. Ila gives a polite knock before peeking in to check on Setsuna. He plays it cool, says he's fine, and then casually points to a vase on the table. As she leans in, he drops the bomb. It's a magical artifact activated by touch. The second she would have made contact with it, would have siphoned a huge chunk of her mana. She's horrified, asking why something so messed up is just sitting there. He deadpans that it was a little gift meant to take him out before the match. He then casually mentions this is the 7th attempt on his life. Man, being the hero of a reincarnation manhwa is rough. She asks if he's hurt, but he just brushes it off, saying it's all handled. He knows it was Actor's dirty work. The guy was meticulous, leaving zero evidence to trace back to him. And right on that dramatic beat, there's a knock at the door. Right then, 3 kids wander in, clutching a bouquet and asking Ila to give it to Setsuna, leaving Ila completely baffled about why they're even there. One of the little guys pipes up, explaining some random man sent them to deliver it. But when they look around, the dude is long gone, Ayla just thinks, seriously, Setsuna couldn't have just grabbed this himself? The boy adds that the guy who sent them was super pushy about it. Just then, one of the kids holding the flowers starts to look woozy and drops the bouquet. That's when Satsuna's eyes lock onto some grim marks on her neck, a nasty flashback to something he'd seen in the war. Without a single hesitation, he absolutely boots the bouquet away. Ayla, totally alarmed, yells, "What is wrong with you?" Setsuna lays it on her. The flowers are venium, a seriously toxic plant, and judging by the kid's condition, things are looking bad. A wave of pure rage washes over Setsuna. He's muttering furiously, disgusted by how low some people will sink just to mess with others. He knows these kids are on a clock. If they don't get treatment as soon as possible, they're not going to make it. The catch, only a specialized healing mage can correctly identify and neutralize this kind of poison. Ayla, just as freaked out, states the obvious. Their lives are on the line. Setsuna immediately bolts, telling her to keep her distance from the children too. He warns her that getting too close could expose her to the poison, but Ayla just assures him she'll be fine and whips out a brooch. "Trust me," she says. Setsuna instantly recognizes it as a magical artifact, basically a mana battery. Ayla explains her mom packed it with healing spells for exactly this kind of worst-case scenario. She starts the healing process, and Setsuna can see the ugly marks on the children's skin slowly beginning to fade. Ayla mentions her mom gave it to her for emergencies, but she never in a million years thought she'd use it for something this twisted. Setsuna gives her a nod of pure gratitude for the clutch save. He then uses his own power to fling the poison-laced bouquet far away, vowing to handle the rest. He knows Venium is at its most lethal when it blooms, and he has to deal with it before things get even worse. Problem is, if he tries to destroy it in front of a massive crowd, the poison will go airborne. That would put everyone in danger. Plus, the poison is already starting to get to him. So, he hurls the bouquet towards the world tree, praying it can handle the toxicity. With a massive surge of power, he blasts it, severing the toxic plant and launching it into the sky, far away from the arena. As he watches it burn to a crisp, he feels the poison's grip on him start to dissipate. Just like that, his strength comes flooding back. Meanwhile, back in the arena, the gossip mill is in full swing over Setsuna's no-show. Some are even saying he chickened out. An announcer checks the time and declares that Setsuna is about to be disqualified. The second he's about to name actor the winner, Setsuna appears out of nowhere. He cuts the guy off, announcing that this match is far from over. Actor just gives him this bizarre, smug smile as he watches Setsuna walk in. Actor acts all pleased, talking about the gift he prepared to congratulate Setsuna on his first-round win, saying it was just his style. Setsuna, however, flat out calls him on his scummy tactics. He didn't just send poison, he dragged innocent children into his pathetic scheme. Actor, of course, plays dumb. He claims he has absolutely no idea what Setsuna is talking about. Livid, Setsuna clenches his fists. Actor just keeps going, saying there's no need to get so worked up over something so minor. In fact, he claims the children should be times proud, times they got to play a role in his victory. This, predictably, only makes Setsuna even more furious. The host finally calls for the match to begin. Actor immediately attacks with some over-the-top star-mutilated magic, but Setsuna dodges it with ease. Drago, watching from the stands, can tell something is off, wondering if Setsuna ran into trouble on his way to the arena because his mana feels completely unstable. Setsuna knows the World Tree purged most of the heavy-duty poison, but the dregs are still in his system, keeping his body from firing on all cylinders. A whole barrage of attacks flies his way, but Setsuna just leaps and weaves through all of them. Actor, clearly just getting started, mocks him, sneering that the great representative of the melee magic department only knows how to run away. From the sidelines, Silas whispers to himself, gloating that it was a good thing he rigged everything in Actor's favor. He's convinced that even if Setsuna gives it his all, there's no way he can win this fight. Setsuna, meanwhile, notices Layla isn't there yet, and a fresh wave of worry for the kids hits him. Actor taunts him again, pointing out that he can't even focus on the battle, and suggests that Setsuna seems to be running out of steam already. Some guy in the cheap seats pipes up, saying all the melee magic guys know how to do is run. His buddy next to him is just like, yeah, how's Setsuna supposed to win against a ranged magic user? For real. Actor lunges again, shouting that it's time for the grand finale. Setsuna digs in, ready to block the hit with his mana guard. Just as he goes to power it up, the thing just shatters, and he gets absolutely wrecked. Actor just throws his head back and laughs. He's straight up mocking how pathetic Setsuna looks, but Setsuna, struggling to even get to his feet, asks Actor why he's stalling. He taunts him, asking when the ranged magic department ever pulled its punches. Like, why isn't Actor just ending him and getting it over with? Instead, he's just running his mouth. See, even while getting his face rearranged, Setsuna's brain is working overtime, trying to figure out Actor's real game. Actor just smirks, realizing Setsuna's been dissecting his every move. Even while on the defensive, the guy's been strategizing. Actor admits he's interesting and tells him to take a look around. When Setsuna does, he sees he's been hurted. He's trapped on a tiny patch of rock, completely surrounded by a moat of lava. Some kid in the audience screams the obvious. He's completely trapped. Actor goes on a whole monologue about his pursuit of perfection, claiming Setsuna danced right into his trap. He charges up his storm cannon, declaring that it's all over now. Right on cue, Layla bursts into the arena, yelling for Setsuna. She lets him know the kids are safe now. A genuine smile crosses Setsuna's face, a look of pure relief. He calls back that now he can finally go all out. The gloves are off. In an instant, Actor feels a massive surge of mana from Setsuna and is completely baffled. How did you gather that much power? Setsuna just explains that while Actor was busy showboating, he was using physical boosts to kickstart his cells and purify his blood. He finishes by saying that Actor basically just dug his own grave. Actor, absolutely fuming, screams back that Setsuna is practically falling apart. From the sidelines, Silas is losing it. He's yelling at Actor to just finish him, convinced that Setsuna is bluffing his face off. Actor unleashes his attack, but Setsuna knows he's running on empty. He's got just enough gas in the tank for one last move. Pouring every last ounce of his strength into it, he deflects the massive blast with his sword, a move that leaves both Drago and Actor completely stunned. The attack, now under new management, is rocketing straight back at Actor. He quickly cancels his own magic and scoffs. Did you seriously think I'd just stand here and take a hit? Actor boasts that the only one getting buried today is Setsuna, but when he finally looks up from his own grandstanding, he gets a nasty surprise. Setsuna has already blitzed across the gap and is right in his face, sword at the ready. Setsuna just smirks and says, "And you're the one who underestimated me." In a split second, all of Actor's bravado vanishes. He's on the ground, terrified, begging for mercy and apologizing over and over. But Setsuna just gives him a brutal smack with the flat of his sword, knocking him out cold. Setsuna coldly informs the unconscious body that he should be apologizing to those kids, not to him. The announcer officially declares Setsuna the winner of the match. But just as the crowd erupts, the freaking floor of the arena decides to give way, crumbling into a chasm. Both Setsuna and the unconscious Actor are sent plummeting. The entire stadium gasps. As they fall, Setsuna realizes Actor is completely out of it, and at the speed they're dropping, he's about to become a pancake. Using his powers, Setsuna somehow manages to correct his fall mid-air and snag Actor just before he goes splat. He can't help but wonder if he's too late to save the jerk. At that exact moment, Carol appears above them and summons Fenrir, her massive spirit beast, to save the day. Setsuna instantly recognizes it as her signature summoning magic. The audience goes absolutely wild as the giant wolf swoops in and rescues them both. Carol praises Fenrir, then turns to Setsuna with a smile, hoping he didn't mind her jumping in. Setsuna thanks her for the save, thinking to himself that Carol is without a doubt a top-tier contender in this whole Academy tournament. This is the kind of power you see in a legendary Academy Manhwa. He knows she's a major threat and that he'll need to seriously prepare for their inevitable showdown. The crowd, meanwhile, is still buzzing over Setsuna's insane victory. One student comments that there's no way that was just luck, while another girl remarks that the outcome was a total shocker. Turns out, the headmaster was watching the whole thing unfold. Elsewhere, Silas is absolutely livid with Actor, calling him a useless idiot and vowing that Setsuna will pay for this, just as our hero rejoins Isla, Drago, and Lionel. Isla gives him a look of genuine gratitude. Drago, who's now heard the full story, gives Setsuna a nod of pure respect. So, first things first, our boy Setsuna is doing the post-battle wellness check on the kids. Isla gives him the all-clear. They're just chilling in the infirmary and are going to make a full recovery. You can practically feel the relief wash over him, because my man was stressed. But just as he's about to relax, he gets that spidey sense tingle. You know the one. He whips his head around, and Isla's all, "You good?" But Setsuna, playing it cool, just hits her with the classic, "Nah, it's nothing. It was just a flicker, a split second of pure, unadulterated murderous intent from somewhere on campus. Yeah, something wicked this way comes, and if you want to see Setsuna deal with whatever fresh hell this academy throws at him next, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss this." Later that night, we find Setsuna brooding by some rocks in the forest, his internal monologue running hot. He's only got 1 week until the final match. He's also replaying that freaky magic he felt during the tournament, realizing he needs a serious power-up stat. And speak of the devil, his department head, Lionel, pops up, wondering why they're having a secret rendezvous in the middle of the woods. Setsuna cuts right to the chase. He wants to learn a legendary spell, the Comet Fist of George or Lionel. Lionel just chuckles, like, "Wow, haven't heard that name in years. Where'd you dig that up, kid?" All while Setsuna is clenching his fists, the pieces clicking into place. Because that's the legendary name he remembers from his first life in the Maze army, before his whole reincarnation Manhwa do-over. The Comet Fist wasn't just some cool title, it belonged to a melee mage who punched a freaking dragon. Problem was, by the time he joined the army back then, the legend had already vanished. It was just a wild guess, but Setsuna is now 100% certain his department head is the legend himself. With full-on shonen protagonist determination, he bows and basically begs to learn the technique. Lionel's like, "You sure? This is some ancient, heavy-duty magic." Setsuna doesn't even blink. Couldn't care less. "You're the strongest melee mage I've ever seen." Lionel's genuinely curious why this kid is so desperate for more power. I mean, he's already a monster. But Setsuna's answer is simple. It's not enough. He is done with losing, period. He's not just trying to win. He's getting strong enough to beat an opponent even if they're invincible. Lionel just bursts out laughing, calling him an interesting kid, and agrees to teach him. But he throws in a warning, this isn't some skill you pick up in your average academy manhwa. This is the real deal. Then, Lionel starts gathering mana in his hand, and Setsuna can feel an absolutely insane amount of energy being compressed. Lionel officially introduces the technique he's about to show off, the Comet Fist. He admits he's only used it more than twice because it drains the mana tank, but one punch is all you need. Watch closely, he says. Then, with a single punch to the ground, Lionel unleashes so much pressure the entire area just explodes, sending rubble flying everywhere. Setsuna is completely awestruck. He's just muttering about how it's crazier than anything he could have imagined. Lionel explains the trick is focusing a massive amount of mana into a single point, which, yeah, makes it kind of hard to use in a one-on-one tournament fight. He asks if Setsuna still wants in. Setsuna's response? He's practically buzzing. I am SO looking forward to it. So Lionel agrees to start the training and tells him to follow. And with that, we hard cut to Carol, enjoying a totally normal and not at all suspicious tea time with some dude congratulating her on making it to the finals. She thanks him, and he gets right to it, asking if she's confident she can take down the guy from the melee magic department. Carol just gives him a chill smile, playing it humble. Who knows what'll happen? I'm just planning to do my best. The guy finishes his tea, and Carol offers to get him another cup. The second she gets up and turns her back, he discreetly whips out some sketchy-looking card and zaps her with it. Glowing emblem appears on the back of her neck, and she just collapses. The dude smirks, thinking it'd be perfect if his new puppet Carol could just beat Setsuna. However, if that plan goes south, well, he'll just have to deal with both of them himself. Meanwhile, we jump back to Setsuna, deep in his training montage, wondering if he's going to be ready. And surprise, Lionel is absolutely floored. Setsuna mastered in just 1 week what should have taken years. That's that protagonist cheat code for you. Lionel just tells him he's passed, and the Comet Fist or Charge Bullet lessons are officially over. And just like that, it's the day of the final match. The arena is packed, the crowd is absolutely electric. The announcer is on the mic, hyping up the final match of the Mage Academy's 781st intramural contest. First up is Carol, the undefeated champion from the Summoning Magic Department, and her opponent, the guy who completely shook up the entire tournament this year, Setsuna from the Melee Magic Department. The students are all buzzing, totally split on who's going to win, but some random guy is screaming that Carol's got it in the bag since she's been absolutely dominating every single match. One girl was basically leading the Setsuna fan club, saying after his last fight, she was all in, while a trio of kids chanted his name from the stands. The main event was going down at the goddess's ruins, and just to make sure the collateral damage wasn't insane, a formation mage threw up a seriously heavy-duty barrier around the arena. Isla, watching with Lionel, called it a fair matchup. Lionel, however, was already overthinking the whole thing, while Setsuna just stared down the headmaster, mentally cashing in that promise for a second magic specialization. Carol smirked, noting out loud that it looked like Setsuna actually came prepared for once. Her game plan? Summon her giant wolf Fenrir and dare Setsuna to bring the heat. With a booming voice, the announcer kicked off the final match everyone had been waiting for. In a flash of light, Carol summoned Fenrir, hopped on its back, and charged. Setsuna barely sidestepped the attack, thinking, is that a glacial bomb mixed with a literal blizzard? Overkill much? Carol just taunted him. You're quick on your feet, but you can't play defense forever. You're going to regret not hitting back. Fenrir lunged again, but this time Setsuna flipped a switch on his physical amplifier, jacking his speed up by a factor of 10. He zipped past the attacks and got right up in Fenrir's grill, sword ready to slice and dice. Ela cheered, thinking he had it in the bag. Lionel, ever the buzzkill, pointed out that Fenrirs are basically just walking clumps of mana. Any damage he deals, it'll just regenerate in seconds. Carol confirmed his theory. Not bad, but now watch this, as she used Fenrir's power to flash freeze the entire arena floor. Setsuna's eyes went wide as ice crept across the entire stage. He quickly realized the cold was so intense, the only thing stopping it from freezing the audience was that magical barrier. A shadowy figure in the crowd stood unfazed on the new ice rink, thinking to himself, now Fenrir's attacks are going to be way stronger. He watched with interest, wondering what Setsuna's next move would be. With a fire in his eyes, Setsuna knew that just chipping away at the wolf was a total waste of time. The longer this fight dragged on, the worse his odds got. He decided to get creative, using the busted-up ruins as a personal parkour course to leap and dodge. He decided to bet it all on his charged bullet technique, forming a blade of pure mana as Fenrir's next attack completely obliterated the pillar he was just standing on. Some kid in the audience was like, is he even attacking? He's just dodging. His buddy shot back, dude, he's totally outmatched by a summoner, obviously. The three little kids looked super worried for their hero. As Lionel stared intently at the fight, Ela nudged him, asking what was up. He muttered that it was nothing, but in his head, he was breaking down the charged bullet, a move you can only use once after gathering a massive amount of mana. It's a terrible technique for a one-on-one duel, but with Setsuna's insane level of control, he was concentrating all that power into his fist. It was a huge gamble, and meanwhile, Carol was thinking, I don't know what he's planning, but I'm not giving him the chance to find out. So she summoned Garuda, a massive bird familiar, to fight alongside Fenrir. Drago's jaw hit the floor. She summoned two at once. Lionel just shook his head, admitting, Her talent is absolutely monstrous. Both giant beasts charge Setsuna at the same time, and Ayla gasp. But Setsuna just casually blocked both of them, one with each hand, knocking them back like they were nothing. He then looked at Carol with zero emotion and said, "I knew you'd pull out your trump card." Stunned that he just tanked her ultimate combo, Carol could only stammer, "How?" But before Setsuna could launch his counterattack, he spotted that weirdo in the crowd. The man smirked, snapped his fingers, and suddenly Carol cried out in pain as a vile, dark aura exploded around her. Setsuna's blood ran cold. Is that the forbidden magic of the death god? This was the kind of dark arts you only read about in the wildest reincarnation manhwa plots. He couldn't believe it was actually real. Carol started muttering nonsense, then let out a horrifying scream, unleashing a wave of dark energy that spawned a horde of shadow monsters that swarmed Setsuna. The crowd was losing their minds, yelling, "Wait, how many familiars does she even have?" But Lionel knew. He screamed, "This isn't her magic. Stop the match." He yelled for them to dissolve the barrier, shouting at the top of his lungs, "What is the formation mage doing? Take it down now." But the man responsible for the chaos just chuckled, explaining that only the person who cast the barrier could undo it, a fact that was pretty inconvenient for everyone, seeing as the formation mage was already gagged and tied up in the villain's clutches. As the monsters closed in, Setsuna knew one thing for sure. The real enemy was here, and he was close. Setsuna fires up his Manadar, trying to pinpoint the puppet master, but Mr. Shadow Man is basically like, wrong priority, bud. Focus on the giant bird." Then he sicks Garuda on him. The beast smacks Setsuna with a pole, sending him skidding across the arena floor. From the stands, Ayla is having a full-blown panic attack watching him struggle to get back up. Our villain, hiding somewhere in the crowd, starts monologuing about how Setsuna can't possibly find him, and in his beat-up state, he's totally helpless anyway. Laginel, meanwhile, is practically chewing his nails off. He knows there's no way Setsuna can prep another charged bullet in time, and Carol is looking seriously unstable. If they don't do something fast, she's going to lose control of her magic completely, which could literally be the end of her. He's dead certain someone is pulling the strings. Carol is still fighting it, screaming for Setsuna to run for his life as these creepy shadow monsters swarm him. He's dodging her attacks while trying to get closer, all while fending off the shadow posse. He comes face to face with a horned freak, grabs it by the horns, and just yeets the creature into its buddies. The headmaster is just watching this chaos unfold as Laginel bolts up the stairs, thinking Setsuna is about to get wrecked. He knows he has to find the mage who put up this death dome. He's just gotta hope Setsuna can hang in there. Just then, another beast with a massive, sharp horn charges and stabs Setsuna right through the leg. Ayla gasps, seeing the fresh wound, and you can hear the crowd murmuring, all of them thinking Setsuna is pushing himself way past his limits. The guy behind the curtain declares that it's all over and orders his monsters to finish him. They all charge, and one of them, Femur, chomps down hard on Setsuna's hand. The pain is unreal. Setsuna lets out a scream that echoes across the entire arena. And then boom, flashback. He remembers a lesson from Lionel about the single most important rule of melee magic. Drago's answer had been all about having the power to one-shot your enemy, but Setsuna had a different take. He explained that it's really about closing the distance while taking as little damage as possible. Lionel then added that the real key is to not even flinch at an attack. You have to stay tough and focus enough to land that one perfect counterpunch. Then he told them they were about to start training on how to take a hit. Snapping back to reality, Setsuna realizes the gambit worked. The villain watching thinks Setsuna's arm is completely shredded, wondering if he did it on purpose just to focus his mana. Setsuna knows these familiars are in an absolute frenzy. One moment of weakness, and he's dinner. Seeing them eye him up like prey, he roars that he's finishing this with a single punch and unleashes a massive charged bullet attack. It completely vaporizes all the familiars at once. After the smoke clears, Carol is about to collapse, but Setsuna zips over to catch her. He makes sure she's okay before gently laying her down. The audience is in total shock, trying to process what they just saw and wondering if Carol really just fainted. Finally, the announcer makes it official. Setsuna is the winner, marking the first time in 100 years that someone from the melee magic department has taken the championship. This is prime Academy manhwa drama. The students absolutely erupt, with one guy shouting about that last technique Setsuna used, something nobody had ever seen before. Layla and Drago are losing their minds with joy, and the kid Setsuna saved earlier, the one he defeated, just smirks, saying he called it and even put a bet on him. His friend asks him how much he won. Elsewhere, the villain mutters that he didn't actually expect Setsuna to win, but he's not about to let this slide. First order of business, get rid of the barrier mage. But then he spots something weird, wondering if someone is congratulating the guy. He quickly uses some kind of spell to slap a tracking sigil on the back of the formation mage. Meanwhile, Ayla is heading to that exact spot, sensing a bizarre magical signature. By the time he gets there, the formation mage is already knocked out cold on the ground. Ila's just standing there thinking, okay, what did I just miss? At last, the barrier starts to dissolve, and the headmaster descends into the arena, commenting that it's no shock Carol collapsed after summoning that many familiars. Setsuna is convinced someone was secretly controlling her. The headmaster gives her a quick checkup and confirms his suspicion it was the work of a magical artifact. He tells everyone to stand down and that he'll take it from here. As the headmaster starts healing Carol, he looks over at Setsuna and gives him a nod of approval for proving his mettle. The headmaster swore he'd make good on his promise, and with a nod of thanks from Setsuna, the old man peaced out, telling Setsuna to swing by his office tomorrow. Our boy then limped over to the infirmary, where a healer was working her magic on his battle scars. As she patched him up, she laid it out plain. He wasn't 100%, so he'd better take it easy. Setsuna thanked her and got into some fresh threads, and right on cue, there was a knock at the door. Setsuna invited them in, and in walks the whole crew: Lionel, Drago, Isla, and the three little hype kids. Isla immediately shot over, asking if Setsuna was okay. He just gave her a cool smile and flexed his hand, showing her he was basically back to factory settings. Isla was absolutely beaming, congratulating him all over again. Drago, puffing his chest out with pride, did the same, calling Setsuna the pride and joy of the entire melee magic department. The three kids, still buzzing from the fight, were gushing about how awesome he was out there. After the little victory party wrapped up, the group started to filter out, leaving only Lionel with Setsuna. Lionel dropped the latest intel. The formation mage was awake and doing fine. He went on, explaining Carol wasn't exactly having a great time, but she was officially out of the danger zone. Once she was fully back on her feet, they could finally get the full story. But the big takeaway was obvious. Someone had deliberately tried to take Setsuna out during the match. Lionel looked him dead in the eye and asked if he had any idea who was behind it all. And just like that, the scene cuts to the dead of night. A shadowy figure slinks up to a room, trying the door. No dice. He quickly clocks that a barrier has been thrown up to keep out unwanted guests. But for this guy, that barrier was about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. He shatters it with a flick of his wrist and steps inside. The room he just broke into? Carol's, where she's lying completely out of it. The creep mutters to himself that it's best to clean up this loose end before dealing with Setsuna. Can't have any witnesses running their mouths after all. He launches a nasty attack at Carol. A blade slices right through it, stopping it cold. And there, standing between them, is Setsuna, eyes blazing with pure resolve. He says he knew the culprit would come for her, but damn, he was really hoping it wasn't Leo. Leo just smirks, saying Setsuna finally caught on to the game, but taunts him that he doesn't have a single shred of proof. Setsuna admits it was just a hunch, a gut feeling, until this very second. He suggests that since the cat's out of the bag, they should probably take this little chat outside. They both start the classic pre-battle walk and talk, and Setsuna is painfully aware he's not fully healed. A fight in this condition would be an absolute disaster. Leo tells him to stop with the death glare and asks when he first got suspicious. Setsuna lays it out, saying Leo completely ghosting everyone after the ritual of the choice was the first major red flag. It was also super bizarre that Leo, of all people, wasn't chosen to represent the ranged magic department, and no matter what tricks Akshara pulled, Setsuna knew he wouldn't have been duped that easily. Leo just shrugs, guessing he should have been the rep after all. But Setsuna wasn't done, explaining that seeing Leo tonight was the final confirmation. He could feel it, the same dark power of the death god rolling off him, the exact same sinister vibe from the final match. Leo's interest is piqued. The death god, you say? He asks, as different, creepy auras begin to swirl around him. Red lines crawl across his face as he asks what Setsuna knows about it. Setsuna recognizes the magic instantly. Leo's entire presence has shifted. This dude is a full-blown henchman for the big bad. And if that's the case, Setsuna knows he has to stop him, no matter what it takes. Leo then asks if they can finally drop the whole best friends act. He says he wants to have some fun with Setsuna, which is villain speak for a world of hurt. With a mana sword in hand, Setsuna lunges at him, but Leo shatters his blade in half like it's a toothpick. This whole scene feels like a bad rerun, some kind of deja vu you'd only see in a reincarnation manhwa. Leo boasts that he's earned the death god's trust and was gifted the magic of disintegration, one of his boss's many party tricks. Translation: no matter what Setsuna throws at him, it won't even scratch the paint. Setsuna charges in again, but once more, Leo casually swats his attack away. Still, our boy is thinking he can't just give up now. So Leo's playing it cool, only whipping out his disintegration magic when Setsuna lunges, then zipping around so fast it leaves Setsuna's head spinning. Our boy tries a sneak attack from behind, but denied. Leo blocks it without even breaking a sweat. Leo flashes this smug grin, basically taunting him. Nice try, but my senses are on a whole other level than yours. Unfazed, Setsuna cooks up a fireball, muttering that this whole thing would be way more fun if he wasn't, already seriously banged up. Despite the searing pain, Setsuna manages to plant his feet. Leo's actually a little impressed, commenting that for a guy running on fumes and Millie's healing, he's a surprisingly tough nut to crack. He then throws some shade, saying Setsuna would have been a total beast if he just joined the ranged magic department. Then he starts acting all weird and philosophical. He's all like, "What can you do?" as if he had no choice in the matter, before declaring, "All right, playtime's over." With that, Leo unleashes an electric spike. The spike tears right into Setsuna's leg. The pain is off the charts, and Setsuna realizes his wound from the finals is definitely not healed. He bites back a scream, a wave of agony washing over him. He grits out, "Why are you doing this?" Leo's answer is chillingly casual. "No reason, just bored with the world." He compares it to kicking over some other kid's sandcastle just because you can. Setsuna is floored. This whole twisted logic reminds him of his past, and he roars that Leo has hurt and murdered people for such a pathetic, trivial reason. He's practically screaming, asking if this is even the real Leo anymore. But Leo just snaps back, "Shut up." He winds up for another attack, and Setsuna knows his mana blade won't cut it. He needs one massive, overwhelming strike to put this guy down for good. He flashes back to his brawl with Discord, telling himself he can't tap out now. Setsuna preps his ultimate move, but Leo just smirks, a little late for that. And then Leo unleashes his own devastating attack. Setsuna feels the raw power of a death god rocketing towards him, but just in the nick of time, a bolt of lightning intercepts the blast, and a second one slams into Leo. He manages to block it, but the damage is done. Setsuna looks up to the roof, and in a classic Academy Manhwa twist, the cavalry arrives. The headmaster, perched there with his absolute unit of a dragon. The headmaster calls down, "Hope I'm not too late to the party." Setsuna just grins back. "Nah, you're right on time." The headmaster puts two and two together, realizing all the chaos during the intramurals was Leo's doing, and that he's been tracking that impure menace signature this whole time. Leo just scoffs, admitting the headmaster isn't in charge for nothing. The old man looks genuinely heartbroken, wishing the traitor wasn't one of his own students. In a flash of pure rage, the headmaster bellows at Leo to surrender. His dragon lets loose a roar that could shatter glass and unleashes its blaze skill. Setsuna can feel the insane heat from the attack, but Leo just stands there, completely untouched. He casually notes that it's the legendary white dragon, the top-tier summonable beast. If it wasn't for the juice the demon god gave him, Leo admits he would have been toast. The headmaster immediately gets it. Leo is using magic disintegration. He mutters to himself that the forbidden magic is actually real. Setsuna, confused, asks if he knows what that is. The headmaster drops some serious lore, explaining that ancient Silverlock family records foretold that when a mysterious dark power awakens, it'll trigger a full-blown catastrophe. And yeah, magic disintegration is a key feature of that world-ending power. Leo just laughs, boasting that no magic can touch him now, not even the headmaster's. He then starts flexing, weaving three different elements together for his next attack. Setsuna's eyes go wide, it's triple attribute combo magic. Leo floats into the air, looking like a final boss. He gathers an insane amount of energy and unleashes it in a massive chaotic spray. The headmaster's expression turns deadly serious, and he yells at Setsuna, "Take 2 steps to your right, now!" Setsuna doesn't hesitate and narrowly avoids getting vaporized. The headmaster is also effortlessly dodging the blast, which clearly gets under Leo's skin, who's wondering what kind of magical footwork this is. The headmaster retorts, "Surprised? You're not the only one with tricks up his sleeve. In fact, I'm the only one who knows how to counter that cheap magic of yours." Leo just sneers. He finds the whole situation hilarious and promises to crank the power up to 11, challenging the headmaster to dodge his next, even bigger attack. Setsuna recognizes the dark energy, it's gotta be the death god's power. Leo goes full villain monologue, threatening to wipe them all off the map. The headmaster can feel it too. This isn't just regular magic anymore. At this rate, everyone in the vicinity is going to get caught in the magical fallout. He shouts Setsuna's name, and our boy immediately knows what the plan is. The headmaster summons a holy butterfly, which spreads its shimmering wings, and together, he and Setsuna ride the dragon, soaring into the sky as Leo watches from below with a twisted smile, watching the headmaster go all out, trying to play hero. He then pointed at the white dragon with a classic "come at me, bro" taunt, and both sides let her rip. Leo's attack was so ridiculously overpowered it slammed into the dragon, kicking off an explosion you could probably see from space. He then casually asked the headmaster if he was ready to tap out. The headmaster basically replied, "Yeah, maybe it's time for this old man to hang it up." But right then, bursting from the smoke, Setsuna came charging at Leo like a freight train. Leo just scoffed, totally unimpressed, saying it was a real shame Setsuna wasted all that time hiding behind a dragon just to set up a sneak attack. He taunted that all Setsuna's hard work was about to go down the drain as he threw up a personal shield. Setsuna shot back, vowing to make Leo personally regret every ounce of that smug arrogance. He thought to himself that speccing into melee magic was definitely the right call, and he was about to prove it with one solid hit. Leo warned him not to get cocky and underestimate a literal demon god. But as Setsuna connected, he completely shattered Leo's barrier, landing a hit that sounded like a thunderclap. The dude dumped all his stat points into pure speed. He blitzed right through Leo's defense, causing another insane explosion. The headmaster, providing some helpful commentary, noted that even magic-eating abilities have a processing limit. He had to give it to Setsuna for that gutsy move. Leo was now in freefall, looking seriously messed up. Setsuna realized his melee build had literally outsped the magic-erasing hacks and actually beat Leo. In that moment, he knew his character build was perfect. He turned to the headmaster and said he figured they were probably in the clear for now. The headmaster started praising him and was about to suggest a trip to the nurse's office, but just then, like every final boss ever, Leo got right back on his feet. Setsuna was floored, completely shocked that his ultimate move basically did nothing. Leo, looking like he'd been through a meat grinder, stood tall and got ready for round 2. Leo unleashed his power, timed it perfectly, and fired a blast straight at Setsuna. Our boy tried to block with his sword, but the thing just disintegrated before Leo's attack slammed into him. He was sent flying, creating a brand new Setsuna-shaped crater in the nearest wall. He struggled for a second, all busted up, and then collapsed. As his consciousness started to fade, Setsuna could hear Leo's voice, unable to believe the guy was still standing. He was just too OP. He wondered if Leo had somehow fused ranged magic with his magic-canceling ability, but that seemed impossible. In his fading thoughts, he had a flashback to training, back when he was practicing on targets. For Leo, it had been a total cakewalk. He remembered telling Leo that he was such a natural that if he, Setsuna, ever slacked off, Leo would surpass him in a heartbeat. Leo, looking amused, had replied that getting a compliment from a prodigy like him felt pretty darn good. Back in the present hellscape, Leo wondered aloud if he should fire off another shot, and this time, he said, it would be aimed right at Setsuna. He told him to look behind him. When Setsuna turned, he saw that all his friends were injured and getting swarmed by monsters. Leo laid into him, saying he didn't deserve to be the hero, that he was a failure who couldn't save anyone. He'd abandoned them all. With those brutal words echoing in his head, Setsuna woke up in a bed, feeling like he'd been run over by a truck. Isla was sitting right there, looking massively relieved. She told him how glad she was he was finally awake. As he tried to figure out where he was, she explained he was in the infirmary and had been out cold for 3 whole days, worrying her sick. Setsuna was just drowning in regret, thinking he was completely useless when things got real. This whole reincarnation Manhwa plot wasn't turning out to be the power fantasy he'd hoped for. He'd been totally powerless against the demon god, just like in his past life. He pushed the thought aside and asked how the headmaster was doing. Illa told him the headmaster was probably in his office, tied up in a big meeting with all the department heads. As Setsuna started climbing out of bed, Illa was like, "Whoa, where are you going?" He threw on his clothes, saying he had to see the headmaster about something important. Illa pointed out that he was, not exactly healed yet. Put a hand on her shoulder and apologized for making her worry, but insisted he had to see the headmaster immediately. With that, he turned and bolted from the infirmary. Over in the office, the headmaster had just wrapped up a crisis meeting with the other department heads, thanking them for their help as they filed out. Someone commented that they were all going to be ridiculously busy for a while. Silas then grumbled that everything had been made worse by that one kid. And speak of the devil, Setsuna threw the door open, calling out for the headmaster. The old man smiled, glad to see him up and about. Silas, however, looked like he just smelled a fart. Yeah, the guy wasn't exactly throwing a welcome home party. Lionel just gave Setsuna a supportive shoulder pat saying, "Dude, you've been through the ringer." Apparently the whole squad was freaking out about him, told him the debrief could wait. After they bounced, Setsuna was left standing in front of the headmaster, absolutely drowning in guilt, convinced this whole mess was his fault. He tried to raise a hand, asking what went down after he blacked out, but immediately hissed in pain like he'd just touched a hot stove. The headmaster was like, "Easy there, champ. Don't push it. You're still on the mend." Then he launched into the story of what happened after Setsuna took a dirt nap. So get this. Leo basically said, "As much as I'd love to finish this, my mana bar is blinking red." So he decided to just dip for now. He figured a rematch down the line would be fun. Then, our boy Leo ripped open a portal and vanished, but not before leaving a little catch-you later for the headmaster, basically saying they'd totally hang out again if the stars aligned. The headmaster, meanwhile, was thinking, man, that was a golden opportunity to end him. But whatever's on the other side of that portal is a big ol' nope for now. They need to go all out when the time was right. Setsuna, meanwhile, plopped down, his brain still doing backflips. He brought up that creepy entity and the whole dimensional rift thing, which the headmaster confirmed he saw too. Then the headmaster hit him with, "So, any clue who that was?" And then he dropped another bomb. "Exactly how much do you know?" Pointing out that Setsuna somehow knew about his super secret, off-the-books magic. "Spill it," he said, "so I can actually trust you." Setsuna froze, wondering if this was the moment to drop the truth bomb of a lifetime. I mean, how do you convince your principal you're a time traveler? The headmaster pressed, "Is there a reason you're being so cagey?" And right then, Setsuna had a light bulb moment. He told the headmaster to check out the amulet of resurgence. The old man looked shocked, inspected it, and was like, "This is the blessing of the long-lost spirit of time." His big brain immediately connected the dots. If this thing's been used in another timeline, then time travel is totally on the table. Setsuna was like, "You nailed it." He laid it all out. He jumped back 10 years from the future, using the amulet as his escape pod after his world got wrecked. Then came the full info dump, a plot straight out of the darkest reincarnation Manhwa. A death god is coming to wreck the planet, and he and his goons are going to ice the headmaster. The headmaster admitted it sounded absolutely bonkers, but the amulet was cold, hard proof. Even with the spirit's power making time travel possible, he realized the future must have been an absolute horror show for Setsuna to feel the need to rewind the clock a full decade. The headmaster put a hand on his shoulder and said, "You've been carrying a heavy load, kid, but now you've got me. I'm all in." Setsuna felt this massive wave of relief wash over him. With the headmaster in his corner, maybe, just maybe, they had a fighting chance and the world wouldn't become a smoldering crater after all. And then the headmaster was like, "All right, new plan. I'm teaching you a second type of magic specifically to clap back at this death god." He explained this wasn't some standard issue magic. This was elemental magic. And with that, he announced it was time for a classic academy Manhwa training arc, suggesting they pack their bags and relocate for a bit. So, off they went to the World Tree. The headmaster got all nostalgic, mentioning it had been a hot minute since he'd last visited. Turns out, this was his old training ground back in the day, which kind of blew Setsuna's mind. Once they were settled, the headmaster broke down elemental magic, kindergarten style. Basically, he said, you use your mana to vibe with elemental spirits, letting you cook up some serious power inside your own body. Since it's so different, elemental magic doesn't play by the same rules as the standard stuff. The best part? You can mix and match it with other magic types, which makes it insanely versatile and a total game changer. Setsuna was skeptical, like, is that even possible? The headmaster just smirked. I guess a little show and tell is in order. As the headmaster started to power up his elemental magic, his eyes lit up like a pair of high beams. Setsuna immediately recognized the eye color swap from the throwdown with Leo. But then the headmaster completely changed gears and said, let's play rock, paper, scissors. Confused, Setsuna was like, why? And the headmaster just casually explained that since Setsuna was still basically a walking pile of bandages, a full-on duel was off the table. He then suggested they could at least play a game to kill some time. So they started playing, and the headmaster absolutely schooled him every single round, just telling Setsuna to run it back. And after watching Setsuna take L after L, the headmaster finally revealed his secret. The power of elemental magic, specifically the spirit of time, was giving him a sneak peek. This little cheat code let him see a few seconds into the future. He then dropped a knowledge bomb, explaining that tons of different elemental spirits exist, and your powers depend on which one you sign a contract with. For instance, if you buddy up with the wind spirit, you can straight up fly, make a pact with the water spirit, and you can dodge attacks like you're in the Matrix. Setsuna's mind was blown, realizing this elemental magic could give his melee fighting style a million different upgrades. But then the headmaster hit him with the catch. Setsuna couldn't actually practice any of this awesome magic until he landed a contract with an elemental spirit himself. And to do that, there was a super critical first step. Setsuna, all ears, asked what it was. The headmaster just smirked and said they were going to try it right then and there. The old man instantly went into Zen mode, clearing his mind to become one with nature. He told Setsuna to try and feel the spirits, saying they were literally everywhere. So Setsuna squeezed his eyes shut, trying to become one with the universe, focusing all his energy on sensing the spirits. He was practically begging them for the power to fight the death god, but nothing. Absolutely zero. He was fuming, thinking he couldn't feel a single thing. The headmaster, picking up on his frustration, basically told him his personality was the problem. Setsuna was just like, excuse me, what? The headmaster laid it out. To become one with nature, you have to hit a trance, like state. You gotta empty your brain to actually feel the vibes of the spirits around you. Setsuna tried to focus again, but his mind was just not having it. It was racing, thinking about how he was failing to focus, and how all he really wanted was to just get stronger already. Seeing the kid about to short-circuit, the headmaster put a hand on his shoulder and told him to chill. He then casually mentioned it took him 3 whole years to finally feel nature and connect with the spirits. Setsuna, realizing the death god was on a 5-year timer, basically said they didn't have that kind of time. The headmaster, still unbelievably patient, asked what he meant. Setsuna shot back that there was absolutely no time to lose. The death god's apostles could show up at any moment, and there was no telling when. The headmaster's ears perked up at the mention of apostles, so Setsuna had to give him the rundown. Just like the death god, they're from another world and have bizarre powers that aren't anything like magic. He added that Leo was, without a doubt, one of them. This whole situation felt like a classic reincarnation Manhwa plot, where he remembered fighting just one apostle before he got his second chance at life. And that single opponent was so ridiculously overpowered that even with everything he had, Setsuna barely scraped by with a win using ranged magic. The headmaster nodded, confirming that according to the Silverlock family records, there are supposed to be 12 apostles in total. Setsuna just grimly accepted it. It hit him that there were probably a bunch of other psychos just like Leo, all wanting to burn their world to the ground. Sensing Setsuna's rising panic, the headmaster reassured him that being impatient wasn't the answer. Fear and anxiety could just make things worse, and rushing in recklessly was a recipe for disaster. Instead, he proposed a solution, some good old-fashioned joint training in a dungeon. He framed it as the perfect chance for Setsuna to gain some much-needed experience and power-up. Setsuna was definitely interested in this joint training and asked for the details. The headmaster told him Lionel would fill him in on everything. This training was basically a shot for Setsuna to push past his limits, get stronger, and just get better, you know? The Ultimate Academy Manhwa training arc, but he also warned him it wouldn't be a cakewalk and told him to rest up. And scene change. We cut to Leo, getting dropped into a dark, castle-like room. He apologizes for being late, but Zagan, the 10th apostle, immediately calls him out, saying Leo's got some nerve making them wait and asking if he's still stuck in his old ways. Then you've got Hukka, the 9th apostle, just casually walking on the ceiling, who mentions he heard Leo got into it with the wrong student. He's wondering how Leo got himself into so much trouble, especially after he already made Bagati run home crying. Pukka then puts him on blast, asking how he plans to clean up his own mess. So Leo, the 12th apostle, finally shows up and offers this lame apology about how he was just having so much fun times catching up with a friend that he kinda, lost track of time. Zan, who is absolutely seething, tells him to wipe that stupid grin off his face before he does it for him. They lock eyes, the air crackles, and Zan is basically powering up for a beatdown. But before the first punch is thrown, a voice from the shadows cuts in, calling them a couple of morons and pointing out that apostles are supposed to have a little more class. This mystery man reminds them not to do anything that might screw up their god's grand plan, as if they needed a reminder. And the guy delivering this lecture? None other than Satanaxia, the second apostle. He casually flexes his power, putting the squeeze on both of them, and asks with a chilling calm if they have anything else to add. Zan backs off, but not before pointing an accusing finger at Leo. So, are you going to deal with this screw-up who couldn't even finish the job? Because if not, I'll happily go take care of that kid myself. Puka, ever the creep, chimes in with a giggle, saying if they want a real assassination, a true work of art, they should just leave it to him. He promises it'll be a spectacular show. Satanaxia just shuts them all down. That won't be necessary. It's already being handled. He adds that the specialist he assigned to the task will see it through to the end. Flash forward a few days after the big tournament, and we're back in a classroom where Setsuna is trying to blend in with the other students. Isla slides up to his desk, giving him the once-over. Are you sure you should be in class? He just nods, explaining that sitting and listening doesn't exactly require peak physical condition. She's not buying it. It's only been a few days since the finals, and you're already banged up again, she says, her eyes full of concern. Is something going on with you? Satsuna's mind flashes back to his little chat with the headmaster, who basically said dropping the hey, a death god and his apostles exist bombshell would cause mass panic right now. The headmaster's plan was to brief a handful of trusted instructors, turning them into a secret security detail to guard the academy and hunt for Leo. He also put Satsuna's elemental magic training on ice for the time being, which is a major bummer for our hero. Snapping back to the present, he apologizes to Ila for making her brew him another herbal remedy, insisting he's fine. But in his head, it's all about one thing. He needs to heal up, and fast, so he can get back to training. Clenching his fists under the desk, he doubles down on his resolve to recover. As Ila takes a seat next to him, the instructor gets up to the board, announcing that class can finally begin. He then drops the news about the next big event on the school calendar, the interdepartmental joint training. The students start murmuring, and Lionel explains that this isn't just another fight club. While the last contest was about individual skill, this is a full-blown crossover event. The training is all about forming mixed squads with students from different departments to discover new strategies and level up their teamwork. Classic Academy Manhwa stuff. Setsuna immediately gets it. So, a forced team-building exercise to make us all play nice together. Got it. Lionel then flicks on the projector, and an image of a one-star underground dungeon pops up. He clarifies that this is a high-fidelity replica of the real, deadly deal. Given the very real risks, he says participation is strictly voluntary. The whole thing kicks off in 1 week. He advises them to conserve their energy until then. Satsuna's mind is racing. This joint training is what the headmaster mentioned. He's got 7 days to get back in fighting shape. Later that evening, after classes are done, Setsuna and Ila are walking down the hall. She asks him if he's up for dinner. She reminds him he's got to eat big to get his strength back for the training. He's just trying to think of where to go. That's when he notices that people are staring, whispering about him being the intramural champ, that ridiculously strong melee mage. One girl is blushing bright red, telling her friend she's been crushing on him hard ever since the final match. Isla nudges him with a smirk. Looks like you're the big man on campus now. It's hilarious, considering they were all calling you a loser not that long ago. He just agrees as she steps in front of him. Just as a trio of guys blocks their path, one blonde dude with 2 red-headed lackeys. The blonde one points a finger right in Satsuna's face. So, you're the one who won this year's contest. Setsuna just deadpans. And you are? One of the redheads introduces the loudmouth as Carl. Apparently, this Carl is the head of some prestigious noble salon, and word on the street is that Setsuna is being fast-tracked into the mage army the second he graduates. So, Carl, our resident rich kid antagonist, strolls up to Setsuna and invites him to his salon, acting like he's handing out golden tickets. Satsuna's just standing there like, a salon? Bro, you doing my nails or what? Carl puffs out his chest and explains it's some exclusive club for blue-blooded mages, making it crystal clear that a melee mage like Setsuna wouldn't normally even get to sniff the air outside. But, oh gracious Lord Carl, he's willing to make a times special exception times for our boy. Turns out, Carl's just a clout chaser. He figures having the tournament champ in his little clubhouse will make his snooty salon look good and boost its street cred. Off in the distance, the peanut gallery of girls starts buzzing, all hyped that Satsuna's getting the VIP treatment. Carl, soaking it all in with the smuggest grin imaginable, leans in and tells Setsuna that an elite like him needs to watch the company he keeps. Then he actually points a finger at Ila and drops the bombshell. Hanging out with plebs like her is social suicide and will tank his reputation. The absolute audacity. But Setsuna, bless his heart, just shuts him down flat. A hard no. The 3 stooges are left with their jaws on the floor. As he turns to walk away, probably thinking this is some classic Academy Manhwa drama, he just looks over at Ila and just goes, let's bounce. Oh, Carl did not times like that. He's seeing red, while one of his lackeys nervously whispers that maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't be talking smack to the guy who just won the entire tournament. But Carl, totally unhinged, whips out a chain. With pure rage in his eyes, he starts screaming about how Setsuna dared to disrespect the nobility. The chain's got a freaking blade on it, and he lunges straight for our guy. Setsuna, cool as a cucumber, barely even flinches, just turns his head to see Ila stepping in like a total boss. She puts a stop to Carl's little tantrum, reminding him that unsanctioned duels are a big no-no according to school rules. And for the finishing move, she lays it out plain and simple. The only one being a jerk here is times him asterisk. Carl's attack grinds to a halt, and you can practically see the steam coming out of his ears. He's just fuming, sputtering about how a commoner like Ila has the audacity to get in his way. Meanwhile, his two buddies are looking at him like, "Dude, you good?" Carl finally backs off, yanking his hand away from Ila. The three of them stomp off, with Carl screaming the classic spoiled brat line, "I'm telling my daddy." Ila just flashes a smile at Setsuna, thinking to herself that, hey, she's leveling up too. But wait, the drama's not over. Someone else calls his name. Setsuna's probably thinking, oh great, who now? He turns around and surprised it's Carol, waving him over. He tells her he's happy to see she's back on her feet. Carol gives him this big smile and says it's all because of him, which is why she wants to give him a proper thank you, and then she invites him to her room, blushing just a little. Ila's side-eyeing this whole situation, clearly thinking, oh, what's happening here? Cut to Carol's room where she's welcoming not just Setsuna, but Drago and Ila too. Plot twist. Turns out she's cooking a huge meal for all of them as a thank you for saving her, but warns them it's going to take a minute. Setsuna, ever the awkward protagonist, is all like, oh, you really don't have to do this. But Carol just waves it off, telling him it's no big deal and to just hang tight. The food will be ready soon. Ila, being the good friend she is, offers to help, saying it's way too much work for just one person. Carol's super grateful and accepts the offer. Ila's internal monologue is hilarious, though. She's admitting she thought Carol was only inviting Setsuna over for other times reasons. Meanwhile, Drago, our glorious himbo, is just confused, asking why he's even there. Carol just beams and says, the more, the merrier. So she and Ila head into the kitchen, and Ila's mind is immediately blown by what she sees. Apparently, she's never seen food that's specifically for healing. Carol explains they're called recovery foods, which sounds straight out of a video game or a reincarnation manhwa. Back in the main room, Setsuna is zoning out, thinking about what the headmaster told him. The big issue, Carol has basically zero memory of anything involving Leo. It might just be temporary amnesia from the trauma, but there's a chance Leo actually managed to mess with her memories. So yeah, they're glad she's not dead, but Setsuna's got this nagging feeling that the danger isn't over, and someone's gonna come for her again. His brooding is so intense that Drago finally breaks the silence and asks what's on his mind. He calls Setsuna out for being way too serious all the time and tells him to chill out for once. Setsuna is actually considering it when suddenly, boom, a noise that sounds suspiciously like an explosion erupts from the kitchen. Setsuna's first thought is, are they having a magical training session in there? Drago's just as shocked. A second later, Carol yells for Drago to get in there and help. He walks in, and she immediately shoves a super tight apron at him. Drago's looking at it like, you for real? She apologizes, saying the only one she has is a maid's apron. Of course it is. So the three of them get to cooking, and before long, the feast is ready. Setsuna's about to dive in when Ila casually mentions that they might have, gotten a little carried away and made enough food to feed a small army. Setsuna just grins, says it all looks amazing, and declares that since they worked so hard on this feast for him, he's going to eat every last bite. He digs in, thinking that with his enhanced physique, he can basically activate a black hole in his stomach and eat endless amounts without getting a stomachache. The perks of being a manhwa protagonist, I guess. Setsuna was busy inhaling his food. Ila slides over, giving him the side eye and asking if he's just stress eating. He flashes a grin, assuring her it's all legit delicious. Then he's like, okay, spill. Who's the culinary genius behind this egg soup? The umami is off the charts. Drago, smug as a cat that got the cream, puffs out his chest. Glad you like it, champ. I made a ton, so go nuts. And as Setsuna actually asks for seconds, you can practically see Carol's soul leave her body, defeated by Drago. The whole crew just chills, enjoying the food, and for a second, Setsuna gets hit with a wave of good vibes, thinking this is exactly what he's been missing. It's a total throwback to the good old days, pre-time travel madness, just peaceful hangs with his squad. A piece that got absolutely wrecked by that one dude, Vid, turning his life into a high-stakes reincarnation manhwa. But Setsuna makes a silent vow, not this time, he's not losing to Vidra or anyone else ever again. And if you want to see him keep that promise, make sure you're subscribed, because we're fast-forwarding 2 weeks to the main event, the Dungeon Joint Training. The scene is pure academy manhwa chaos in a good way. A massive crowd of students is buzzing outside the dungeon gate, the air thick with nervous energy. And right in the middle of it all are our boys, Drago and Setsuna. Drago nudges him, yo, you're looking less like a zombie today. Setsuna cracks a smile, feeling 100%. Seriously, man, that recovery food you made was clutch. I mean it, Thanks. Drago just waves it off, all casual like, don't even mention it. That's what friends are for. And he adds, just gotta keep eating it though. And Setsuna's thinking, man, with Drago and his crew on my side, this dungeon crawl is gonna be a walk in the park. Famous last words in any manhwa, am I right? He knows he can count on the guy 100%. Just then, a dude and a girl roll up. The guy asks, you two been waiting long? Drago just smirks. Well, look what the cat dragged in. The seniors have arrived. The guy introduces himself as Mun, a third year from the Formation Magic Department, here to officially complete their 4-person squad for this little field trip. The girl with him, who's been rocking the mysterious hooded look, finally pulls it back to reveal she's Yuzua, and she's totally stoked to be working with them. Drago gives his name and reps the melee magic department, Setsuna does the same, and Mun claps them both on the shoulder. Wait a sec, he says, pointing at Setsuna. Aren't you the guy who won this year's intramural contest? He breaks into a huge grin. All right, looks like we're in good hands then. I'm counting on you two rookies. As Mun steps away, Drago leans over to Setsuna. Dude's way more hype than I expected. Yuzua chimes in. It's nice of him to make the underclassmen feel welcome. Mun, overhearing this, just smirks. Oh, you think so? Hope they enjoy the warm welcome, because the kid gloves are coming off now. Right on cue, an instructor steps forward, booming. All right, looks like everyone's here. Let's get this interdepartmental training started. He introduces himself as Giovanni, their guide for the day and the head honcho of the Formation Magic Department. He's like, as you all know, the Formation and Melee departments are teaming up for this one. And our destination for today? The lovely and not at all creepy demonic ruins. It's a cozy 1-star class dungeon, home to some ancient beasties and other fun critters. Your job is simple. Work together and try not to become monster chow. Giovanni then materializes a bracelet out of thin air, holding it up for everyone. Pay attention. Your performance is being graded. Everything you do gets logged on these little guys. You'll rack up points for every monster you take down and every piece of treasure you snag. The team with the top score gets a shiny medal from the Academy and, more importantly, bragging rights. But wait, there's more. Any individual who breaks 100 points gets a golden ticket to participate in the Royal Mage Army's field training. The Royal Mage Army. That name hits Setsuna like a ton of bricks. It's the big leagues, the kingdom's elite. He knew a lot of his old comrades from that army in his past life. If he can just get into that training, he could see them all again. While Setsuna's lost in thought, Giovanni starts handing out the high-tech bracelets to every student. He gives them a final warning. Stick to the designated safe zones, people. You wander off, you might just run into something way out of your league. And he's dead serious when he says, whatever you do not go down to the lowest level of the dungeon. If things go south, pump your mana into this bracelet. It's a panic button that'll teleport you straight back here. Setsuna's mind is already made up. He's hitting that 100-point target, no question. But then he stops. At the exact same moment, he and Drago both say they're aiming for times 200 times points. They lock eyes, a grin spreading across Drago's face. Well, he says, looks like today's the day we finally give it a real shot. Setsuna gave him the nod, confirming Drago was on the money. Giovanni did a final check. All right, everyone ready? And with that, they plunged into the dungeon. But walking in wasn't in Setsuna and Drago's vocabulary. The second the joint training officially started, they shot off like a couple of rockets. As they sprinted, Setsuna's mind was already cataloging the info. They were in the demonic ruins, a 1-star dungeon built by some ancient civilization, and you guessed it, it was loaded with traps and treasure. The local monster population was practically guaranteed to have a kill-on-sight policy. Setsuna figured that even with teleportation magic on the table, this training was going to be a serious grind. Drago, however, just pointed ahead. Dude, look. A massive pathway had just opened up before them, and bam. They were staring at a ridiculously huge, castle-like structure in a cavern so vast it could have its own weather system. Setsuna reached out, touching a weird growth. Is this some kind of ancient plant? It was wild. A whole ecosystem had basically sprung up inside the ruins. It clicked. This is what the headmaster meant about becoming one with nature. He promised huge rewards and deep insights into elemental magic, and Setsuna planned to cash in on every last bit of it. Just then, the rest of the students began to arrive. Miffin was already complaining, what's the big rush, while Yuzuko pointed at something in the distance as the chatter of the other students filled the air. One group immediately took a path after some guy warned the other routes were all traps. Miffin just scoffed, what a bunch of morons. In this kind of high-stakes academy manhwa, your time's supposed times to take the harder path for the bigger payout. He jabbed a thumb towards a much sketchier-looking tunnel. That's our way. Setsuna had to admit, Miffin wasn't wrong. The game was all about racking up points. You comin'? Miffin called out, but Setsuna, feeling a weird vibe, placed his hand on a wall and realized it was a fake. Whoa, what is it? Drago asked. Setsuna, channeling his inner Sherlock, explained that the plants on this section of the wall were at a totally different growth stage. That pretty much screamed secret passage. Miffin, ever the cynic, asked if it wasn't just a coincidence, but Setsuna wasn't buying it. Nope, he said, I can literally hear wind from inside. Before he could explain further, Drago, a man of action, simply punched the wall open. Setsuna peered into the new passage and shrugged. Well, guess we're going this way. He and Drago charged forward, with Miffin trailing behind, muttering about their incredible insight and how impressive they were. Yeah, what he really meant was we're about to score a ton of points. As they raced up a staircase, a massive boulder came rolling down, Indiana Jones style. Setsuna instantly drew his sword and shattered it. A cascade of rock fragments tumbled down the stairs, forcing Drago and Miffin to dive out of the way. Setsuna glanced over at Drago. He could see the fire in his eyes. Drago clenched his fists, ready to go all out. He declared he was going to make a statement and show everyone how devastating melee magic really is. Besides, he couldn't let Setsuna hog all the glory. Suddenly, asterisk thwip 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 times a volley of arrows shot out. Setsuna dodged them like he was in the Matrix before completely wrecking the trap mechanism. Drago was floored by Setsuna's insane reflexes. The guy always seemed to be 2 steps ahead, like the protagonist in a reincarnation manhwa who's already lived this life before. He commented that if they cleared all the traps, the seniors following them would have it easy. And then, his eyes locked on it, a treasure chest. But before either of them could move, Miffin zapped the chest open with a bit of magic. "Thanks for the hard work, boys," he chirped, snatching the loot and an easy 15 points. Drago's jaw hit the floor. The horrible truth dawned on him. It wasn't finders, keepers. It was times openers, asterisk, keepers. Oh hell no. He swore Miffin wasn't getting away with that again. Fueled by righteous fury, he and Setsuna blasted ahead. This time, Drago felt something weird along a wall. He smashed it open and jackpot, another chest. But before his hand could even touch the lid, Miffin, that little goblin, used his magic to yoink it from across the room. His score jumped to 30, while Drago was still stuck on a big fat 0. Pushing on, Drago ran headfirst into an animated knight. He went to work, hacking off its arms and legs, but right at the last second, Miffin zipped in, lopped its head off, and stole 10 points right out from under their noses. After an eternity, Drago finally scored 10 points. Yuzuko was also sitting pretty at 30. Miffin, however, had continued his point-poaching tour, rocketing his score to 55, leaving Drago absolutely fuming. During a quick break, Miffin had the nerve to lecture Drago. "You've got skill, but your situational awareness is trash. How many points do you expect to get with a mindset like that?" Setsuna, who had a solid 25 points, was just taking it all in. Sure, the rules didn't say anything about sharing the spoils fairly. Setsuna was all about that honor code, calling out seniors for being point-stealing vultures. Yuzua shot Mean a look like, "You hearing this?" But Mean, he just scoffed. He was basically like, "Cry more, you losers. You can't fight, so you whine about the rules." His philosophy? The weak are basically walking loot boxes waiting to be opened. And if they've got a problem with it, come at me, bro. He straight up dared them, knowing full well they didn't have the skills to back up their complaints. Setsuna's internal monologue was firing off. Okay, do not underestimate this guy. But his eyes were glued to Yuzua, who'd been weirdly focused on just slaying monsters since the start. Was she even trying to win this thing? Did points not matter to her? Or was she playing a completely different game? The scoreboard update dropped. Yuzua at 50, with Mean leading the pack at a cocky 80 points. Mean was already gloating, saying he was just a few more kills away from a clean sweep. Setsuna was holding his own with 35 points, while poor Drago was still stuck at a measly 10. The squad rolled into a dimly lit room that just screamed boss battle. The air felt heavy, and dead center, sitting on a throne, was some kind of prize. Without a single second of hesitation, Mean used his magic to yoink the object. Big mistake. A nasty, dark aura immediately erupted from the treasure, leaving Mean looking completely clueless.